Chapter 31. Unlimited Arcane Magic Possibilities. Please select an enhancement direction. Spring of Life, can heal injuries. Spring of Magic, can restore mana. Spring of Recovery, can accelerate recovery. Spring of Detoxification, can remove negative statuses. Spring of Holiness, possesses the ability to restrain evil. Spring of Death, possesses the ability to separate the soul from the body. Spring of Dreams, possesses the ability to make people enter dreams. Roger suddenly sat up, completely devoid of sleepiness. How could there be so many development directions for water creation technique enhancement? Moreover, it doesn't seem to be an enhancement of the skill itself, but rather a change in the skill's nature. The B Company soldiers looked at Roger in confusion. Could something have happened? Roger waved his hand awkwardly. I just thought of some things. You don't have to worry about me, continue resting. After the soldiers lay down again, Roger turned his attention to the system. There are more than 20 upgrade directions, and each direction is a new skill. I wonder what the effects are? Roger didn't hesitate at all and immediately chose Spring of Detoxification. Then he quietly got up and walked to the soldier on guard duty. Go to sleep. I'll take over. The soldier nodded. He had hardly slept well these days, and he couldn't hold on any longer. After everyone fell asleep, Roger couldn't wait to take out his water cup and began to create the Spring of Detoxification. After the arcane glow disappeared, a cup of purple spring water appeared in the cup. Trusting the system, Roger didn't hesitate and drank all the spring water in the cup. Soon, he felt his body itching, quickly reaching a point where he couldn't bear it. Roger forcibly endured the urge to scratch and calmed his mind. Soon, the itching subsided, and Roger felt an unspeakable sense of relief. The evil energy corruption in your body has been eliminated. Hearing the system's prompt, Roger was overjoyed. The effect of the Spring of Detoxification was better than he imagined. With just one cup, it removed the evil energy corruption in his body. This was a stubborn ailment that even priests and holy water couldn't cure. This shows that although the enhancement that changes the skill's nature doesn't increase attributes, the essential enhancement is stronger than the attribute enhancement. Roger fell into deep thought. Is it only the water creation technique that has so many branches, or do all arcane skills have so many branches? Achievement points are powerful, but the ways to obtain them don't seem difficult. Anyone familiar with the World of Warcraft achievement system knows that there are countless achievements to complete. On the contrary, skill points, which are not very useful, are harder to obtain and can only be obtained by leveling up. It's okay to level up quickly in the early stages, but when leveling up slows down in the later stages, obtaining skill points is simply outrageous. Moreover, as the skill level increases, more and more skill points are needed, making it increasingly difficult to upgrade skills. But now, these pits and depressions were gradually bulging and soon became smooth, as if they had never been injured. After the soreness passed, Roger moved his arm, and there was no obstacle at all. After the muscles lost due to the injury were restored, the lost strength was also regained. Roger wasn't sad when he lost his strength before. Because there are countless ways to enhance abilities in this world, the lost strength can be completely replenished from other aspects. However, Roger didn't expect that the way to replenish it would be like this. Roger put the last enhancement point on creating the Spring of Holiness. This may be his hope for revenge against Terran Blood Moon. Roger didn't rest all night and kept thinking about his path as a mage in his mind. With the enhancement of enhancement points, one of his skills can match 10 or even dozens of other people's spells. In the future, he can completely become an all-around archmage. Just imagine waving his hand and having dozens of spells bombard, even Sargeras wouldn't be able to hold on. The next morning, Roger was still radiant. He led the soldiers back to night watch. Just as they walked down the foot of the mountain, they saw John leading people to occupy the high ground and fighting the orcs. Thousands of orcs were constantly attacking Night Watch's defense line. Under the defense of B Company, the orcs were constantly dying in front of the defense line they had built themselves. However, the defensive battle also greatly consumed B Company's weapons, especially arrows. Although the orcs also have hunters, they prefer to use axes and hammers. Heavy weapons make them feel comfortable with their strength. After drinking the blood of demons, their desire to kill increased, and the orcs who originally used bows and arrows also abandoned them and picked up battle axes. This is why the orc race only had ranged units after Thrall saved the Darkspear trolls in Warcraft. Therefore, the orcs in Night Watch simply didn't have the materials to reserve for making arrows. B Company's arrows couldn't be replenished and were quickly running out. While directing the battle, John shouted, "Caracal, you immediately drive the carriage and retreat south. Don't let the orcs steal this gold." "Yes." The tall Caracal is a warrior who uses 2 axes. He can easily defeat an orc warrior. But in the current situation, Caracal, who has no protective ability, is difficult to survive under the impact of the orcs. Therefore, John asked him to drive the carriage to minimize casualties. Every soldier in B Company was carefully cultivated by Roger and cannot die here in vain. Just as Caracal ran to the carriage, he saw a shooting star streak across the east. No, it was a huge fireball. Rumble. The fireball smashed into the orcs' charging path, and more than a dozen orcs flew up in the shock wave of the explosion. The trembling of the earth made it difficult for the charging orcs to stand. This change stunned the fighting parties, and everyone looked in astonishment at the place where the fireball came from. They saw a mage on the top of the mountain condensing a huge fireball above his head and releasing it towards the orcs' position. "Meisner!" The B Company soldiers shouted in surprise, "Lieutenant Kishon is back." Sure enough, Roger's figure appeared next to Meisner. He raised a gorgeous bow, and with a flick of his fingers, a flaming arrow flew out, piercing an orc's neck. "Roger!" John exclaimed excitedly. He shouted to the soldiers, "Our reinforcements are here, kill the orcs! Kill the orcs!" The morale of the B Company soldiers was greatly boosted, and they took the opportunity to launch an attack, driving the orcs out of night watch once again. Chapter 32. The orc warlord looked at the dozen or so people on the mountain with annoyance. He had never imagined that a 10-man squad could hold back his thousands of troops. But the reality was right in front of him, and he couldn't do anything about it. That exceptionally powerful mage had already disrupted his attack twice in a row. This couldn't continue. The orc warlord pondered for a moment, then looked at his most trusted warrior, "Take some men and circle around from the rear to eliminate that mage on the mountaintop." The orcs received the order and launched another charge. B Company was out of arrows, so they easily reached the edge of Nightsong Town, hugging the walls to bypass the defenses and launch a surprise attack on the B Company soldiers. However, just as they jumped out of their hiding places, a giant fireball fell from the sky. Rumble. Dust flew up, and the orcs were blown away. Then, several arrows shot out, eliminating the orcs who could still move in the smoke. Roger lowered the phoenix bow and said to the mage beside him, "Messner, cast a spell on the houses next to the stables." Messner nodded, and the burning staff in his hand continuously drew magical energy from the air, quickly forming a giant fireball. Messner gently moved his staff, and the large fireball smashed directly into the house Roger had indicated. With a loud crash, the house and all the orcs hiding behind it were turned to dust. Roger knocked an arrow, preparing to finish them off. But the results from Eyes of the Eagle made him put down his bow again. The orcs inside that house had all lost their ability to fight. He drew the flame blade and said to the other warriors, "You guys protect Messner, I'll be right back." After speaking, his figure disappeared in front of everyone. When he reappeared, he was already halfway up the mountain. Not far from him, an orc squad was sneaking towards the high ground where Messner was. The orcs were stunned by Roger's sudden appearance, but they quickly reacted and rushed towards Roger. They wanted to kill Roger before he could raise the alarm, so he couldn't ruin their sneak attack. However, Roger didn't raise the alarm or run away, but charged towards them instead. The orc warrior was overjoyed. He swung his battleaxe at Roger's neck, wanting to kill this foolish enemy as quickly as possible. However, before his battleaxe could hit Roger, Roger disappeared before his eyes. The orc warrior was stunned and immediately turned around. Pfft! The sword blade pierced out from his chest, stopping his turning motion. After killing the orc warrior, Roger didn't hesitate, drawing the flame blade and charging towards the other orcs. Before one orc could react, Roger was already in front of him. With a swing of the flame blade, the orc's head flew off. The orcs were shocked and angry. Some orcs were provoked into ferocity and continued to charge at Roger. Roger no longer used swift steps, constantly shifting and turning, wielding his blade and reaping the lives of the orcs. The power, speed, and skill of the Wuji swordsmanship made Roger feel like he was in a no-man's land. The orcs were scared and turned to run. Roger chased them for a while before returning to the high ground. If his role on the high ground wasn't more important, none of those orcs would have escaped. Soon, the orcs stopped attacking. The orc warlord obviously knew that he couldn't take Nightsong Town and decisively retreated. In this battle, some more people died. This made the already small B Company even smaller. Roger gathered the remaining 20 people. Everyone, I won't say any more words to boost morale. Right now, in the entire land of Stormwind Kingdom, we are the only ones with combat ability. And you all have relatives who died at the hands of the orcs. The belief that supports our fight has long since changed from defending our homeland to revenge. The crowd fell silent. As Roger said, the reason why the B Company soldiers trained so hard was to kill more orcs and avenge their families. Therefore, no matter how brutal the battle they went through, no matter how tired their bodies were, driven by hatred, their spirits were always in a state of excitement. So, I won't say any more nonsense. Roger took out the magical equipment from Karajan and distributed it to everyone according to their needs. These powerful weapons will give us even greater combat power. Now, let us head north and kill our way back to avenge the orcs. Head north. We'll kill our way back. Head north. Head north. The voices of the 20 people weren't loud, but their momentum was strong. Roger put the gold from the carriage into a magic bag. Everyone cleared out the supplies, especially collecting arrows. Roger was also cleaning up the battlefield, finishing off the orcs buried under the ruins who hadn't died yet. Roger's hunter leveled up, and Roger put the skill point on underwater combat. One day, he would lead B Company back to Redridge Mountains. At that time, they might fight in Stillwater Lake, so upgrading underwater combat would be prepared for a rainy day. After clearing out the supplies, the B Company soldiers rode the collected war horses out of Nightsong Town, arrived at the Elwyn River, and found the small boat they had hidden before. The small boat wasn't very big, and it seemed very crowded with 20 people and 20 horses. But it was enough. As long as the boat didn't sink, it would be enough for the B Company soldiers to use. Messner, give us some power, Roger said, we're going to Stonecairn Lake. Understood, Messner walked to the stern of the boat in the surprised eyes of everyone. This trip to Karajan was very rewarding for Messner. His robes and staff were replaced with epic equipment and had a huge improvement in fire elemental magic. When he was fighting just now, he was able to cast a huge fireball spell, entirely relying on the specific enchantment of the staff. And the reason why he was able to cast it multiple times was thanks to the robe, which gave him super fast mana recovery. Messner enjoyed this kind of getting stronger. He raised his hand to the back of the boat and suddenly spewed out a large amount of flames. Under the action of the recoil, the small boat darted out and quickly rushed into a tributary of the Elwyn River. When passing the delta, it almost crashed into the riverbed. Damn it! Messner, don't just show off! Messner embarrassedly withdrew some of his mana, and the small boat was able to travel safely in the river. Even so, the small boat was still moving forward at a rapid speed. As Messner gradually became proficient in driving the small boat, the speed of the small boat also gradually increased. In less than an hour, the small boat sailed the waterway that originally took half a day to reach Stonecairn Lake. The small boat docked on the island in the lake, and the soldiers scrambled to jump ashore, then lay on the ground constantly gagging. While enjoying the speed of the super aerojet ski, they also had to pay the price of seasickness. Roger didn't feel any discomfort because of his strength. He even thought that if the jet force of the flame was large enough, could he create a jet plane? This is a topic worth studying. Chapter 33. A strange cry came from not far away, and the warriors immediately looked around vigilantly. They saw countless murlocs emerging from the surroundings, surrounding them from all directions. Protect the horses! Roger shouted, using wind walk to charge into the murlocs. The flame blade instantly reaped the lives of more than a dozen murlocs, trying to attract their attention. However, there were too many murlocs. Although Roger attracted the attention of some of them, there were still murlocs targeting the horses. For the murlocs, the attraction of horses was far greater than that of humans. After all, horses were bigger and had more meat. The meat of one horse could. Swish swish! A rain of spears shot over, enveloping all the horses. Buzz! A huge arcane shield rose, deflecting all the spears and saving all the horses. Leon! John supported the apprentice mage who had just cast the spell. He had just obtained powerful epic equipment and had not yet adapted to it, using too much force all at once. I'm fine. Leon. As the only 3 mages in B Company, he was more adept at defensive magic, so naturally he was the one to save the horses. He steadied himself. The epic robe was indeed powerful, and in a short while, it had restored half of his depleted mana, allowing him to continue to support the shield. John was relieved to see that his complexion had improved. Then he took out a shield, pulled out his survival knife, and rushed to Roger's side to help him clear out the murlocs. With the horses protected, the warriors of B Company could focus on the battle. Compared to the orcs, the murlocs were much easier to deal with. Every battle for the B Company soldiers was like playing Dynasty Warriors, vying to cut grass. Murlocs fell to the ground in pieces, and the murlocs quickly realized the horror of this group of people and turned to flee. Thanks to the power of the epic equipment, the warriors did not suffer too much damage. Only a few people were caught off guard and left with scars on their faces. Seize the time to rest. Roger jumped onto a large rock and used far sight towards East Valley. Because the distance was a bit far, the view was a bit blurry. But the good news was that the orcs at the East Valley logging camp did not seem to notice the battle here. Jumping down from the big rock, Roger took out a map and studied it. When the sun went down, Roger ordered, "Prepare to set off, we will attack the Jadestone mine." The warriors did not hesitate, quickly pulling the horses onto the small boat, and Messner steered the boat to shore in the west. After landing, the group rode their war horses all the way west. The Jadestone mine was just around the foot of the mountain, where the orcs were mining gold day and night. Roger sent people to scout around the Jadestone mine, and he himself sneaked into the Jadestone mine. Relying on windwalk and stealth, he quickly figured out the military layout of the Jadestone mine. Since they had attacked Faraday mine a few days ago, the orcs had obviously increased the strength of the Jadestone mine. The barracks outside the mine, which could only garrison 20 or 30 people, actually garrisoned hundreds of people, with tents densely packed next to each other. Obviously, they had not considered the problem of fire. Roger naturally would not be polite. After returning, he immediately said to Messner, "Prepare magic, when you see my signal, ignite the Orcish camps." He left Leon and 2 warriors to protect Messner, and then took the remaining people to sneak near the Orcish camp. After everyone was in place, he took out a tinder and lit a torch, and before the orcs could react, he threw it into the camp. In the dark night, the light of the torch immediately attracted the attention of the orcs. The orcs immediately picked up their weapons, trying to find the enemy. But at this time, the night sky suddenly brightened. The orcs looked up in confusion, and after seeing the light source, they immediately ran away with their heads in their hands. A huge fireball bombarded down from the mountain not far away, hitting the camp directly. The orcs who did not have time to escape the camp were all knocked to the ground by the explosion. "Kill!" Roger shouted loudly, taking the lead to re-enter the camp, launching a raid against the fallen orcs. The B Company warriors also rushed up, and the unprepared orcs tried to struggle to stand up, but it was too late. Before they could raise their weapons, they were cut down on the ground by the warriors. In a head-on confrontation, the orcs might not be their opponents, let alone encounter a surprise attack. Deep guilt made Caracal ashamed. Facing the orcs again, he was exceptionally brave. He didn't make any protective movements at all, it was completely a life-for-life style of play. At first it was fine, the orcs were caught by surprise and didn't have time to react. But soon the orcs reorganized with their fighting talent. At this time, Caracal's desperate style of play was very dangerous. Soon, a dying counterattack by an orc injured Caracal. The orc's axe struck his shoulder, almost cutting off his arm. Caracal covered his wound and continued to rush towards the next orc. The orc was extremely embarrassed, a seriously injured human actually wanted to kill him, which was completely ignoring him. He charged fiercely, holding up his battle axe and leaping high, wanting to kill Caracal. Caracal's eyelids jumped, raising his battle axe to resist, but he felt a little despair in his heart. However, he did not regret it, because he should have died in Nightshade Town long ago. Just then, a figure suddenly appeared in the air, taking the orc's head with a long knife. The orc's body knocked Caracal's body, knocking him to the ground. The blood gushing out of the orc's body poured Caracal's face, and some even flowed into his wound. Ah! Caracal felt his soul was burning, his eyes began to turn red, and there was an urge to choose someone to devour. Roger was annoyed by Caracal's impulsiveness, shook the blood on the flame blade, kicked away the orc's body, and was about to reprimand him. But, he quickly discovered Caracal's appearance and quickly reached out and pressed him. Caracal said with the only remaining reason, "Lieutenant, kill me quickly." Roger frowned, "What's wrong with you?" Caracal said painfully, "There is something wrong with the orc's blood, I don't want to become a monster." "What's wrong with the orc's blood? This is just an ordinary orc, what else could there be besides drinking demon blood?" "Demon blood?" Roger observed Caracal's appearance, which seemed similar to that of an orc who had drunk demon blood. His eyes turned red, his skin turned green, and he became bloodthirsty. He seemed to be turning into a humanoid orc. He quickly waved and called over 2 warriors, asking them to hold Caracal down, and then he made a cup of detoxification spring water and poured it in for Caracal. Chapter 34. After drinking the antidote potion, Caracal calmed down a lot. However, his red eyes and green skin did not revert, seemingly because the dosage of the antidote potion was insufficient. Roger made another antidote potion, but it didn't work at all. Could it be that the antidote potion can't remove demon blood? Roger was puzzled, but seeing Caracal regain his sanity and stop struggling, he didn't think too much about it. After all, the battle was not over yet. He asked a warrior to take care of Caracal and then rejoined the battle. The orc warriors in the military camp were quickly cleared out, and cleaning up the orcs in the jade mine was only a matter of time. After all, they were just some weaker laborers and foremen. As long as the warriors were not careless, they would never capsize like Caracal. In Roger's mind, Caracal had become a negative example. Before dawn, the battle in the jade mine also ended. Roger ordered the soldiers to gather all the supplies inside and outside the mine into the military camp, whether it was gold ore, even a broken pickaxe was not spared, and all were packed into magic packages. His purpose was to delay the orcs' accumulation of gold, so as to buy time for the northern human kingdoms and dwarves and gnomes, even if it was just one more day. Seeing that it was dawn, Roger immediately led his men back to the island in the center of Stonecairn Lake. Roger had the warriors take turns resting to prevent the murlocs from taking the opportunity to attack. Perhaps the murlocs had learned their lesson, or perhaps they saw that there were sentries on guard and dared not attack. In short, everyone slept for a few hours, and although they were still tired, their physical strength had recovered. Seeing that it was still early, Roger had everyone make a fire and cook. Then he came to Caracal's side. "How do you feel?" Caracal had been treated, and his wounds had almost healed, with no major problems. "I feel very good, but as long as I think of my fallen friends, I can't help but want to get angry." Caracal was a little weak, but his spirit was very good. Roger frowned and asked some other questions. As a result, Caracal kept saying that there was nothing wrong, everything was fine except that he always wanted to get angry. This stumped Roger. Helpless, he could only make another cup of antidote spring water and a cup of life spring water for Caracal. Caracal had no reaction after drinking the antidote spring water, but after drinking the life spring water, his wounds healed quickly and did not affect his movement. "Lieutenant, I request to join the battle tonight. Are you sure you can do it?" Roger asked worriedly. "Of course. I'm better than ever now." To prove that he was fine, Caracal specially lifted a large stone, weighing at least 100 pounds. Okay. Roger quickly told him to put it down. Since he was fine, he might as well join the raid on Eastvale logging camp. B Company was already short of people, and one more person meant more strength. Although Caracal might not be able to exert his full strength, he could at least watch the horses. In the evening, B Company attacked again, this time targeting Eastvale logging camp. Expanding the logging camp takes time. Transferring tools and opening up the site is not something that can be completed in a month or two. Eastvale logging camp had already recovered before the attack on Stormwind City. Although the journey is longer, it is still faster than expanding Azeroth logging camp. After Fargo Deep Mine was attacked, the guards at Eastvale logging camp also increased. Together with the original guards, there were more than 200 people, more than 10 times the number of B Company. Therefore, they could not attack head-on, but only outsmart them. "John, you lead the men to lure the orcs out, and I'll sneak in and set a fire. Why fight to the death when you can steal the base?" John nodded and waved his hand to lead the men to set up traps. After fighting so many battles with Roger, he had already learned Roger's tricks. He had no chance to use them in Nightshire, but now he could finally show his skills. Roger went around in a circle and went to the east side of the logging camp to wait for an opportunity. Soon, a huge fireball smashed into the logging camp. The orcs in the logging camp were alarmed, and while directing the laborers to put out the fire, they sent troops to the west. Soon, the logging camp became chaotic. Roger took the opportunity to sneak into the logging camp. He quietly reached the wood pile, took out lamp oil from the magic package, and sprinkled it all on the wood. Then he ignited it with dry grass, and the flames instantly enveloped the entire wood pile. The orc laborers panicked and came to put out the fire. Roger drew out the flame blade and harvested their lives one by one. Soon, the fire was burning beyond salvation, and Roger then went to the west. He had just reached the edge of the forest when he saw the orcs fleeing towards him. Behind the orcs, powerful magic smashed into them, and arrows reaped their lives. Roger immediately cast Windwalk and made a surprise attack these orcs. The orcs fell one after another, becoming Roger's experience. Roar! A loud roar came from behind the orcs, and a tall figure jumped into the orcs, constantly wielding and hacking with double axes, each time killing an orc. Caracal? Roger frowned slightly. Was the previous lesson not enough? He was still so rash? Several wounded orcs prepared to die charged at Caracal. They obviously had no hope of living, and it would be great if they could take someone with them. Seeing this situation, Roger quickly cast Windwalk, wanting to go over to rescue him. But just at this time, Caracal roared again, "Die! Orcs!" His body was flickering with a red light, and in the red light, Caracal's body seemed to be bigger, and his strength and speed had increased. He flexibly dodged the orcs' weapons, and with a round of his double axes, he killed all the orcs. This Roger was stunned. It seemed to be bloodlust. But bloodlust is a shaman skill, isn't it? Of course, some warriors also have this skill. Many orc warriors have mastered this skill because they once had a flourishing shaman culture. Warriors who know bloodlust are exceptionally powerful. Coupled with the bonus of rage, they have achieved the most powerful branch of orc warriors, Berserker. The best of them is Broxigar, who chopped Manoroth and injured Sargeras. If leap and mortal strike is the upper limit of a Berserker, then bloodlust is what increases the lower limit of a Berserker. Killing a few orcs did not satisfy Caracal. He quickly caught up with another orc and roared, "Cut the orc in two!" Everyone else chose ranged attacks, but only Caracal chased after the orcs, as if he was chasing hundreds of orcs alone. That scene was super shocking. Chapter 35. Rend Blackhand looked at the ruins before him, exceptionally furious. Where are the enemies? The orc warriors looked at one of their own, who stared at Rend Blackhand in fear. The enemies left before dawn. They retreated to Stonecairn Lake, to the west. Worthless! Rend Blackhand kicked the orc warrior to the ground. More than 200 men couldn't defeat even 20, losing more than half their numbers. What else could they be but worthless? Rend Blackhand was equally annoyed with the enemy. Now was the time the Warkif was preparing for the northern expedition, yet this human army had to come and cause trouble. They were simply courting death. Leading the elite warriors of the Blackrock clan, Rend Blackhand quickly headed to Stonecairn Lake. He searched around the lake, but didn't find the enemy. Instead, he encountered more than a dozen attacks by murlocs. Dare the weak crawlers challenge the great orc warriors? The furious Rend Blackhand slaughtered all the murloc tribes he encountered, finally venting his anger. Calming down, Rend Blackhand examined the tracks he found around Stonecairn Lake and made a judgment. The enemy should be on the island in the center of the lake. Everyone, spread out and monitor. If you spot the enemy landing, immediately send a signal. The orcs, riding their wolves, scattered and set up numerous observation points around Stonecairn Lake, monitoring the island in the center. However, after monitoring for a full day and night, not only did they not see anyone land, but not even smoke rose from the island. Rend Blackhand was very annoyed. These humans are too cunning. He had been tricked. Damn it! Rend Blackhand was furious and immediately asked the orc warlord stationed in Goldshire, which direction did the enemy retreat in? West. Rend Blackhand immediately set off, chasing west. Following the tracks, they chased all the way to Crystal Lake, but to no avail. The enemy had long gone. After examining the tracks, Rend Blackhand discovered that the enemy had left by boat. Looking at the map, he realized that the Elwyn River had a well-developed waterway system, connecting not only Crystal Lake and Stonecairn Lake, but also Reedridge Mountains and Stranglethorn Vale. If the waterways weren't cut off, the enemy could attack most of the orc outposts in Elwyn Forest via the Elwyn River. Jade Quarry, East Vale Logging Camp, the numerous farms along the river, Goldshire and Fargo Deep Mine were all under threat. Have people gather boats. Just as Rend Blackhand gave the order, a wolf rider rushed over with a message. Fargo Deep Mine has been attacked. The mine entrance was blown up with magic. Rend Blackhand was expressionless. He knew that getting angry at this time would only fall into the enemy's trap. This time, he had brought hundreds of wolf riders, as well as more than a dozen blade masters, to completely eliminate this troublesome enemy. According to the descriptions of the defeated orcs, the commander of this human army was a human wielding a flaming blade who knew how to use wind walk. Clearly, he had received the Blade Master's legacy and mastered the wind walk skill in a short period of time. If this human couldn't be killed quickly, the Blade Master's legacy would spread, and humans might train a large number of Blade Masters to fight against the orcs. Therefore, Dalrend Blackhand sent more than a dozen Blade Masters to help Rend Blackhand, to kill this human Blade Master before he grew stronger. Rend Blackhand had often ridiculed the Burning Blade clan. The Blade Masters, hailed as the strongest orc warriors, were not only killed by humans, but even had their legacy stolen. They were simply a bunch of stupid pigs. But now, it seemed that it wasn't that the Blade Masters were foolish, but that the enemy was too cunning. Send people to restore production at Fargo Deep Mine. Tell all garrisons to keep a close watch on the rivers. As Rend Blackhand's orders were issued, the entire Elwyn River came under surveillance. However, they still didn't find any trace of the human army. The human army seemed to have vanished into thin air. Reedridge Mountains, south bank of Stillwater Lake. Stonewatch Keep was a fortress built by humans to resist gnolls, but now it had become an orc military fortress. The area west of Stonewatch Keep, all the way to Althor's Mill, was the base for the Wolf Riders. They trained here, waiting for Warkif Orgrim's order to march north. Across from Stonewatch Keep, there was a mountain peak. Behind the peak, a group of humans were stationed. It was Roger's B Company. After attacking Fargo Deep Mine, Roger didn't stop, and directly took a boat to Reedridge Mountains. His actions in Elwyn Forest had already drawn enough attention from the orcs. Taking advantage of this opportunity, he wanted to make a big move in Reedridge Mountains. He knew that Orgrim was about to advance into the Burning Steppes, and the remaining orcs would be his target. Before that, he needed to wait patiently. While letting B Company rest, Roger scouted at night. Orgrim had stationed a large force in the open area outside Blackrock Spire, preparing military supplies every day. They occasionally sent Wolf Riders north, and each time the Wolf Riders returned, they looked as if they had been in battle. Clearly, they were clearing out the scattered Dark Iron Dwarves in the Burning Steppes, laying the groundwork for the main force's advance. The reason why the Wolf Riders didn't station in the Burning Steppes was because it was too hot there. Since the volcano erupted, the entire Burning Steppes had been like a large steamer, and the temperature had never dropped. There were even many lava lakes on the surface of the earth, constantly transmitting heat into the air. The wolves were already covered in fur, and couldn't survive in such a hot environment. Therefore, each time they advanced, the Wolf Riders would bring magic items made by warlocks to cool down. Once the magic items were used up, they would retreat back to Reedridge Mountains to rest. Roger also took this opportunity to learn arcane magic from arcane Gothas, and finally learned his first attack spell, Arcane Missiles, before Orgrim set off. Unlike other mages' arcane missiles, the arcane missiles taught by arcane Gothas didn't require channeling. Several arcane missiles could be released in an instant, increasing his rating ability. Moreover, because he learned arcane magic, the hunter's skill Arcane Shot was also unlocked. He no longer needed to rely on enchantment to shoot magic arrows himself, which further enhanced his strength. Chapter 36. Arcanagatos valued promises greatly. Although his temper was a bit bad, he was considered conscientious. While learning arcane spells, he also learned Dragon Tongue and Titan Tongue. Of course, there are no special language-based spells in the World of Warcraft Dragon Tongue spells, Titan Tongue spells. However, Dragon Tongue and Titan Tongue can indeed speed up casting, because these two languages are more concise when chanting spells. For many casters, learning these two languages can greatly increase their strength. It's just that, for a cheater like Roger, the language bonus isn't that significant. His spell casting abilities are all achieved through system skills. He just thinks about it in his mind, and then runs the spell according to the route planned by the system, without needing to use incantations at all. However, he still learned them, because he felt that he would definitely need to use incantations to cast spells in the future. Otherwise, how many spells could he learn relying solely on the system skill points? According to Arcanagatos, there are at least tens of thousands of arcane spells. Could he level up to tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of levels? Don't even mention tens of thousands of levels, Roger estimates that he would die of old age before he could even reach 1,000 levels. Fortunately, his mage level is only 3 at the moment, so leveling up is still very fast. Many murlocs live around Stillwater Lake. Murlocs are weak individually but numerous. Besides giving less experience, they are perfect leveling targets. While B Company was resting, Roger managed to raise his mage level to 7 by killing murlocs. He used 4 skill points, 3 to upgrade arcane missiles to the proficient level, and 1 to learn the new spell Arcane Hand. Arcane Hand is a control skill. It uses arcane energy to condense into a hand that can trap enemies, or pull objects and creatures. If used properly, it is completely a third hand. Roger chose it from among many spells because he valued its flexibility. Killing murlocs no longer provides much experience, and Roger wanted to change his leveling targets to the gnolls in the nearby Tearstone Gorge. But before he could act, Stonecairn Lake suddenly showed signs of activity. Roger, a large force is departing from Stonecairn Lake, heading north. John, who was responsible for monitoring Stonecairn Lake, quickly returned to report. Since learning of his parents' death, John had become increasingly stable. Go. Let's go take a look. Roger followed John up the mountain and used Farsight to observe the enemy's situation. Sure enough, many orcs had been dispatched from Stonecairn Lake, and they passed through the Warg Rider camp without stopping. The Warg Rider camp was already empty, with only some spare wolves kept in cages, and a small number of orcs feeding them. Could it be that the orcs are starting to move north? Thinking of this, Roger told John to take the men back first. Then, he found a relatively narrow part of the lake, swam to the opposite bank, and stealthily passed through the avenue to the mountains on the other side. Climbing to the top of the mountain, Roger looked up and saw teams of orcs marching north. After a rough calculation, there were more than 10,000 people. It seems that the orcs have indeed moved north with their entire army. Roger frowned slightly, not expecting that despite his containment efforts, the orcs were still able to quickly collect all the supplies. He was helpless. Although B Company had killed hundreds or thousands of orcs, this was only a scratch on the surface for the orcs, and did not hurt their core strength. Suppressing the displeasure in his heart, he looked again at Stonecairn Lake, the Warg Rider camp, and the orc main camp. With the orc main force departing, these places could be attacked. Soon, he decided on a target to attack the Warg Rider camp. Stonecairn Lake has a castle to defend it, and the orc main camp has too many people, making attacks difficult. Moreover, if the Warg Rider camp is still there, it can quickly support these two places. Therefore, regardless of strength or geographical location, the Warg Rider camp must be dealt with first. The characteristic of wolves is a copper head, iron bones, and a tofu waist, which is exactly the same as the current deployment of the orc camp. Stonecairn Lake is the copper head, the orc main camp is the iron bones, and the Warg Rider camp is the tofu waist. Just as Roger was planning the attack route, he suddenly saw a team of orcs walking towards the mountains. With the orc main force marching north, why would there be orcs leaving the team? Abnormal. Roger made a decision instantly, got up, and followed them. The orcs crossed one mountain after another, and then disappeared behind a mountain. Roger quickened his pace and followed, discovering that the orcs had entered a valley. Because there were no obstacles in the area leading down, Roger did not continue to follow, but watched them enter the valley from behind. After they turned into the valley, Roger went down the mountain. But just as he reached the halfway point, he suddenly heard a loud roar. Dragon! Could this be the sealing place of the dragon soul? A trace of greed flashed in Roger's eyes. The dragon soul contains the power of the 4-aspect dragons. If he could obtain this power, he could become a god. This chapter is not over, please click on the next page to continue reading. But just as he was about to rush out, he forcibly restrained himself. Because he remembered that the Dragon Maw clan obtained the dragon soul under the behind-the-scenes instigation of Deathwing. Not to mention whether he could snatch the dragon soul, even if he did, he would face Deathwing's pursuit. With his current strength, Deathwing could wipe him out with a flick of his wings. But, is he just going to watch the Red Dragon Queen fall into the trap? Roger's eyes turned, and he immediately left the valley, summoned Arcana Godhose, and told him what he had seen. Dragon soul. The blue dragon was terrified. How could those damned orcs find the dragon soul? Roger pretended to be puzzled. What is the dragon soul? Is it very important? Of course. Rogers, you must immediately notify the other dragons, the blue dragon said anxiously. How do I tell them? Go to the Dragon Blight in Northrend. Wait. Roger interrupted him. Northrend? Arcana Godhose, you need to know that I am at war right now. Are you asking me to abandon my troops and go to Northrend? You don't know the seriousness of the matter. Is it more serious than the fall of Stormwind Kingdom? Roger said with a sneer. Of course. Once the orcs learn to use the dragon soul, then you will have no hope of victory. Its powerful power can instantly kill all humans. Are you kidding me? I'm telling the truth. The blue dragon said anxiously. What exactly does the dragon soul do? The blue dragon hesitated. Chapter 37. Roger said in a deep voice, Arcana Godhos, you should know something about me. I may have all sorts of shortcomings, but I am never one to act recklessly, nor am I an irresponsible person. Since you say that the dragon soul is of great importance, then you should tell me what happened, let me know the seriousness of the matter, no matter how unbelievable it may seem. Because no matter how unbelievable it is, I will believe you. The blue dragon sighed softly, seemingly persuaded by Roger's words, I will believe you. Rogers, it's not that I don't want to tell you, but the dragon soul is too great a threat to the dragons. You must promise me not to tell anyone about this. Of course. Roger quickly assured him, thinking about taking the demon soul for himself, how could he tell anyone? Hearing Roger's assurance, the blue dragon slowly said, in ancient times, all the lands were connected into one continent. In the very center of the continent, there was a huge lake, which we call the Well of Eternity. Around the Well of Eternity lived a group of elves, who called themselves the Kaldore, or Night Elves. The Night Elf Queen Ashera, beautiful and wise, led the Night Elves to rule most of the land on the continent with the energy of the Well of Eternity, bringing the light of magical civilization to the world. However, the fluctuations of magic attracted the attention of the demons, who seduced Ashera and used her to open a huge teleportation array above the Well of Eternity, from which countless demons emerged. The moon goddess Elune and the son of the white stag Malorn, the demigod Cenarius of the wilds, warned the other demigods of the wilds and us, the guardian dragons, and the dragons went to war. Speaking of this, the blue dragon sighed, this war was a nightmare for the dragons, but what we didn't expect was that the creator of the nightmare was ourselves, and this disaster was the dragon soul. In order to deal with the powerful demons, Neltharion the Black Dragon King, the Earth Warden, proposed a suggestion, that all dragons concentrate their power into an ancient artifact, which Neltharion called the Dragon Soul. The Dragon Soul, gathering the power of all dragons, could easily kill all demons, so the other dragon aspects agreed. Maligus the Blue Dragon aspect, the Spell Weaver, Alexstrasza the Red Dragon Queen, the Life Binder, Ysera the Green Dragon Queen, the Dreamer, and Nozdormu the Bronze Dragon aspect, the Timeless One, all transferred their power to the Dragon Soul. When it was Neltharion's turn, he went back on his word. He frantically used the Dragon Soul to attack the other dragons, because the Dragon Soul possessed the power of the other dragons, so they were no match for Neltharion at all. In order to stop him, the blue dragons suffered heavy losses, nearly becoming extinct. Later, we stole the Dragon Soul back from Neltharion and cast a curse on it, preventing the dragons from approaching or using it, and then hid it beneath Redridge Mountain. However, the Dwarven Civil War led the Dark Iron Dwarves to summon Ragnaros, nearly overturning the entire Redridge Mountain, and also allowing the Dragon Soul to return to the surface. After the Red Dragon Queen learned of this, she specifically sent red dragons to guard it. But unexpectedly, the red dragons guarding it were no match for the orcs. That's not surprising. Roger said, after all, you placed a curse on the Dragon Soul. Near the Dragon Soul, the red dragon's strength must be greatly reduced, so it's normal that they couldn't defeat the orcs. The blue dragon was stunned for a moment, what you said makes sense, we overlooked this point. Rogers, now that I've told you everything, you should immediately notify the dragons. Roger shook his head, to be honest, even if I notify the dragons, it won't do any good. What do you mean? Are you going back on your word? The blue dragon asked unkindly. Come on. Roger spread his hands and said, the dragons can't get near the Dragon Soul, so even if I call all the dragons here, can you dragons take the Dragon Soul back? The blue dragon looked embarrassed and asked with a guilty conscience, then what are you going to do? Because of the curse, Deathwing cannot get close to the Dragon Soul, so he had the orcs do it. As long as Deathwing isn't there, Roger isn't afraid of the orcs at all, even if there are a few warlocks among them. Thinking of this, Roger immediately retraced his steps out of the mountains and returned to Stillwater Lake. After reuniting with B Company, Roger ordered, set off immediately, target the Wolf Rider camp. B Company had been ready for a long time, and upon hearing the order, they immediately boarded the ship and crossed Stillwater Lake. Because time was tight, Roger did not adopt the usual combat method, but instead led the charge towards the Wolf Rider camp. "Everyone, be careful to protect yourselves, don't get bogged down in fighting." Although the soldiers didn't know why Roger changed his combat method, they still followed closely behind. Although guerrilla warfare was safe, they still preferred direct combat. The mages and hunters were protected in the middle, and 20 riders galloped all the way to the gate of the Wolf Rider camp. The orcs also heard the sound of hooves and immediately grabbed the weapons placed aside. However, facing the charging cavalry, they were clearly no match. Moreover, this cavalry unit didn't play by the rules at all. Before they even got close, they unleashed a barrage of magic. Especially Roger, who raised his hand and unleashed a wave of arcane missiles, forming a curtain of projectiles that enveloped the orcs. The slower orcs were directly engulfed by the barrage, while the faster orcs could dodge some, but just as they were dodging the arcane missiles, the war horses had already charged in, and the swords and axes swung, reaping their lives. "Masona, burn all the cages." Masona waved his staff, and flames spewed into the wolf cages, burning the wolves inside to death. The orcs resting in the camp continued to arrive, but they were shot dead by spells and arrows before they could even get close. After all the wolves were burned to death, Roger immediately waved his hand, "Follow me closely, don't fall behind." Under Roger's leadership, B Company charged out of the Wolf Rider camp and headed north into the mountains. "Roger, where are we going?" John asked, voicing the doubts of those around him. "We're going to do something big. Everyone listen, from now on, everything you see and hear must stay buried in your stomachs, and you are not allowed to reveal it to anyone." Roger didn't explain, but instead issued a gag order. He promised the Blue Dragon, so naturally, he had to keep his word. Chapter 38. Alexstrasza looked at the surrounding ugly orcs with shame and anger. She never imagined that she would fall into the hands of a group of barbarians. With her abilities, she could have killed all these orcs with a single dragon breath. However, she was now so weak that she couldn't even breathe dragon fire, simply because these orcs were holding her nemesis in their hands. She regretted it. She shouldn't have been so careless, only bringing a few red dragons with her. As a result, the orcs used the dragon soul to control her, making the other red dragons hesitant to act. "Red dragons, if you don't want your queen to suffer, surrender obediently," Zul'jin shouted loudly. With Alexstrasza in his hands, he wasn't afraid that the red dragons wouldn't comply. The red dragons looked at each other, hesitant, but none of them landed. Because once they landed, they would be at the mercy of the orcs. Zul'jin sneered and gave Necros a look. Necros immediately activated the dragon soul, and Alexstrasza screamed in agony, becoming even weaker. "Damn it, stop!" The red dragons cried out anxiously, then slowly landed on the ground. They couldn't bear to watch their queen being tortured, even if it meant sacrificing their own lives to save her. Even if they knew that doing so wouldn't make the orcs let their queen go. "Ha ha ha!" Zul'jin laughed triumphantly. The glory of the Dragon Maw clan was about to be restored. The Dragon Maw clan was just a branch of the Blackrock clan, and they were loyal to Blackhand. Back in Draenor, Blackhand entrusted the clan's Wind Riders to the Dragon Maw clan for management, and the Dragon Maw Wind Rider Knights were always the envy of the orcs. But it didn't last long. During the battles with the Draenei, many Wind Riders died in battle. After arriving in Azeroth, they couldn't adapt to the new environment and some died of illness. The remaining Wind Riders could no longer be used on a large scale. After Orgrim Doomhammer took over, the Dragon Maw clan was directly stripped of their right to use Wind Riders. Because the Dragon Maw clan's allegiance was to Blackhand's two sons, Orgrim entrusted the Dragon Maw clan to Rend Blackhand, as a reward for the Rend Blackhand brothers' loyalty to him. After the orcs conquered Blackrock Mountain, some of the surrendered Dark Iron Dwarves began to serve the orcs. Among them, a very obedient Dark Iron Dwarf often told the chieftains about the history of this land, one of which caught Zul'jin's attention. In the mountains of Redridge, there was actually an artifact that could control dragons. Zul'jin, who had always wanted to restore the glory of the Dragon Maw clan, immediately began to prepare, even concealing it from Orgrim, in order to find this artifact. Now, having successfully captured the powerful Red Dragon Queen using the artifact, how could Zul'jin not be happy? While laughing, he fell into fantasy. Dragon Maw clan warriors riding on dragons, defeating the dwarves and humans in the north, and completely occupying the entire continent. The Dragon Maw clan becoming the #1 clan, surpassing the Blackrock clan, and then helping the Blackhand brothers defeat Orgrim and become the new Warkif's weight. I already have powerful dragons, why should I be loyal to the Blackhand brothers? I can completely become the Warkif myself. While lost in thought, Zul'jin was also pondering. If he wanted to conquer the entire continent, the number of dragons was crucial. But now there were only a few dragons, which made him very dissatisfied. He had to increase the number of dragons. Thinking of this, he turned his gaze to Alexstrasza. Wasn't there a female dragon there? Alexstrasza noticed Zul'jin's lewd smile, and her heart was filled with even more shame and anger. What lewd things was this evil reptile thinking about in his mind? Zul'jin didn't care about the dragon's thoughts. He walked triumphantly towards the red dragons. He wanted to choose a strong mate for the Red Dragon Queen, so as to ensure the quality of the Red Dragon Queen's offspring. Little did he know, on a mountain top not far away, a group of people were spying on them. Roger stared in astonishment at the captured red dragons in the valley, his mind a little confused. What's going on? Did the Red Dragon Queen just come to deliver herself? He had read the Warcraft Chronicle. The Dragon Maw clan's control of the Red Dragon Queen wasn't supposed to happen now. Could it be that because there was an extra him, history had changed? But that's still not right. He could only change Stormwind Kingdom, and couldn't affect Deathwing. What exactly is going on? Roger had a sense of powerlessness. He felt that he was losing his grasp of the plot. John leaned over. Roger, should we attack? Roger pulled his thoughts back. He couldn't control whether history had changed, but the battle in front of him had to be carried out. Flame Blade? After thinking of this name, Zul'jin immediately woke up, and immediately rolled on the spot, rolling to the side. However, Roger in mid-air didn't let him go, directly holding the sword in one hand, and aiming a barrage of arcane missiles at Zul'jin with his right hand. Boom! The arcane missiles exploded on Zul'jin, directly blasting him away, throwing him several meters. At this time, the other orcs reacted and rushed towards Roger with their weapons. Necros, who was controlling the dragon's soul, was also distracted, wanting to cast a spell on Roger. His spell was still brewing, and a flash of light flashed in the corner of his eye. Turning his head to look, Necros was immediately terrified. He quickly cast a shadow ward on himself, and ran towards the Red Dragon Queen, using her huge body to avoid the attack of the huge fireball. Rumble! The earth trembled, shaking the orcs back and forth. The huge explosion deafened their ears, and they shook their heads a few times before they came back to their senses. Looking up, Roger had disappeared from their sight. Kill! John roared, leading the B Company soldiers out of their hiding place, shooting arrows while charging, attracting the attention of the orcs. Necros shook his head and ran. The shock wave of the explosion shattered the shadow ward, almost making him faint. Fortunately, his strength was strong, and he quickly cast another shadow ward, which ensured his safety. Damn it, dare to attack the great Necros, you are courting death. Necros stood up fiercely, brewing a huge amount of shadow energy in his hand, and looked towards the line where the fireball flew, wanting to kill this despicable sneak attacker. Just then, he turned around alertly, and the shadow energy suddenly waved out, gathering into a shock wave and hitting the air. Roger appeared in the shock wave and was thrown out. In mid-air, his expression remained unchanged, letting the shadow energy corrode his body. He threw away the flame blade, then flipped in the air with the impact force, and at the same time took out the phoenix bow, and shot an arrow at the dragon's soul. The dragon's soul was shot to the ground, and Necros's face changed drastically, wanting to regain control of the dragon's soul. Just as he was about to cast a spell, a dragon breath engulfed him. Chapter 39. The Red Dragon Queen stood up and breathed dragon fire on Necros's body again, burning the evil warlock to ashes. Seeing Alexstrasza freed, the other red dragons immediately attacked, crushing the orcs on the ground. John looked at the angry red dragons and immediately ordered, withdraw from the battlefield. He was afraid that the red dragons would not distinguish between friend and foe because of their anger. Facts proved that his worry was right. The red dragons frantically breathed dragon fire at the orcs. If B Company hadn't retreated, they would have been burned to death together. Roger summoned the soul of Argus, which attracted the Red Dragon Queen's attention. Blue Dragon. Respected aspect of life, Argus pays his respects to you. Although the Blue Dragon was surprised, he solemnly greeted Alexstrasza. Roger explained, although these orcs are powerful, they are obviously not a match for the Red Dragon flight. Moreover, as outsiders, they would not know the location of the dragon soul at all. Obviously, someone is informing them. Alexstrasza pondered, not many people know the location of the demon soul. Besides a few red dragons, only my brothers and sisters know. Perhaps there is one more. Roger said in a deep voice, its former user. Deathwing. Alexstrasza frowned, this is impossible. Before she could finish speaking, Alexstrasza suddenly raised her head. Above the northern sky, a black shadow rushed over, moving at an astonishing speed. Roar! After the loud dragon roar, an exasperated voice came, who disrupted my plan? Deathwing! Alexstrasza roared and soared into the sky. The other red dragons immediately followed, helping the red dragon queen attack the black shadow. At this time, Roger and others could see clearly that the huge black shadow was a huge black dragon. Alexstrasza, long time no see. Deathwing, you planned everything behind the scenes. Just a greeting gift for you, my sister. Die. The red dragon queen breathed dragon fire at Deathwing, but Deathwing did not dodge. He rushed towards the red dragon queen, and his huge body knocked the red dragon queen away. His claws left a wound on the red dragon queen's body. Ah! Alexstrasza screamed. Having just escaped the control of the dragon soul, her body was still very weak. She was not Deathwing's opponent in the first place, and now she was even less so. The other red dragons rushed over and attacked Deathwing. Some even stood in front of Alexstrasza, trying to prevent her from being hurt again. However, these red dragons were no match for Deathwing at all. Deathwing injured the red dragon blocking the way with one claw, and with a flap of his wings, he fanned the other red dragons away. He rushed towards Alexstrasza again, wanting to take the opportunity to kill her. At this moment, a rainbow light soared into the sky and hit Deathwing's wings. Deathwing fell downward, barely managing to stabilize his body. He turned his head to look at the attacker and saw Roger in the valley, holding the dragon soul, looking at him coldly. Damn mortal! I'll remember you. Deathwing left a harsh word and turned to fly away. Roger watched Deathwing fly away before releasing the dragon soul. He collapsed to the ground, the dragon soul having exhausted the mana in his body. Roger, are you okay? John quickly helped him up. He's fine, just a little weak. He'll be fine after a period of recovery, the blue dragon said. Roger waved his hand. John, from now on, B Company is under your command. You must remember to use your brain in everything and not rely on temporary courage, understand? Understood. John nodded vigorously. Roger wanted to say something more, but he didn't say it. He tilted his head and passed out. Rescued the red dragon queen Alexstrasza, received Azeroth's gift of life, all class levels increased by 5 levels, skill points 10 points, achievement points 10 points, obtained talent steel body. Steel body, your skin is as tough as steel. Repelled Deathwing, achieved achievement, Black Dragon Bane, obtained achievement points 5 points. The dragon soul is baptizing your body. The energy of life, dreams, time, and arcane magic constantly shuttled through Roger's body, mixed with the power of darkness. The impact of multiple forces caused Roger to fall into a coma. After healing the seriously injured red dragons, the red dragon queen returned to the valley. Did he save us? The blue dragon said, that's right, madam. I saw you falling behind, so I taught him how to use the dragon soul, and he fell into a coma because he couldn't bear the power of the dragon soul. The red dragon queen looked at Roger with a complicated expression, and then looked at the dragon soul on the ground unwillingly. She wanted to take the dragon soul away, but because of the curse, she couldn't pick it up. She said to the humans, humans, for some reason, we cannot take this artifact away. I will temporarily entrust it to you here, but you must not use it for evil, otherwise you will face the endless pursuit of the dragon flights. The people looked at each other and all looked at John. John stood up, Madam, I can't give you too many guarantees. What I can guarantee is to ensure the safety of the artifact until Roger wakes up. The red dragon queen took a deep look at him. These humans were too weak in her eyes. With their strength, how could they possibly protect the dragon soul? However, she quickly noticed one thing, these weak humans were using powerful weapons. Perhaps they also knew they were weak, so they were strengthening their strength from external forces. Go find the scales that Deathwing dropped. The red dragons obeyed and left. The red dragon queen walked to the red dragon's corpse and called out his name, Corielstrass. The red dragon's soul floated out of the corpse. He looked at the Red Dragon Queen with shame. Your Majesty, I did not protect the dragon soul. Don't worry, Corielstrass. This is all Deathwing's conspiracy. You have also completed your mission. I will take you back to Wormrest Temple. But before that, I need your remains. Everything is at your disposal, Your Majesty. Corielstrass' soul gathered into a light and shadow and drilled into the Red Dragon Queen's giant horn. The Red Dragon Queen was a little unbearable, but she still breathed dragon fire on Corielstrass' corpse. After the dragon fire, a small mountain composed of equipment appeared in the position of the corpse. Armor, weapons, shields, everything. John's eyes widened. They had never seen equipment made like this before. Chapter 40. The Red Dragon retrieved the scales dropped by Deathwing. In the dragon breath of the Red Dragon Queen, the scales transformed into a shield and a longsword. Alexstrasza looked at all the humans. Alexstrasza, bless you in the name of life. As long as you protect the dragon soul, you will gain powerful vitality and a longer lifespan. John and the others were shaken, immediately feeling their bodies becoming stronger. Alexstrasza pushed the equipment made by Oristraz in front of everyone. These dragon-forged equipment will protect you, preventing you from being killed by powerful attacks. The crowd was overjoyed, picking up the dragon-forged equipment from the ground. After everyone got a set, there was still some left over. Thank you, Honorable Lady. Alexstrasza said softly, humans, as long as you protect the dragon soul, you will be the Red Dragon's eternal friends. We swear to protect the dragon soul with our lives. Having taken their things, they had to do things for them. Although protecting the evil dragon soul would be very difficult, they would still fulfill their promise. Alexstrasza nodded in satisfaction, then looked at Akanagos. Do you want to return to Wormrest Temple with us? Akanagos was very tempted, but he quickly refused. Lady, I want to stay here for now. After Rogers wakes up, I will return to Wormrest Temple. This will put you at risk of fading away. If that happens, you will never be able to return to Wormrest Temple, the Red Dragon Queen warned. Akanagos smiled, I know, but I still choose to stay. By Roger's side, I have seen many miracles, and I want to see more. Is that so? The Red Dragon Queen was silent for a moment, then good luck. Good luck to you too. The Red Dragon Queen led the Red Dragons away. John put the dragon soul and the extra equipment into Roger's magic bag, made a stretcher, and carried Roger into the mountains. Before Rogers woke up, he did not intend to fight the orcs. There were many wild beasts in the mountains, which could also serve as food. They could also train while hunting. After receiving the Red Dragon Queen's blessing, the warriors' strength had increased a lot, and they needed time to adapt. Time flies, and several months have passed. While sleeping, although Roger lost his perception of the outside world, his consciousness returned to that purple space again. That faint voice sounded from time to time. Roger tried to communicate with it, but he didn't get any response. Roger talked to it, but he couldn't communicate at all. Fortunately, the system was still there. Gain the life blessing of the Red Dragon Queen Alexstrasza. Your toughness skill has been strengthened to resilience, legendary, defense increased by 190%, recovery increased by 190%, resistance increased by 190%, your talent Steel Body has been strengthened. Your talent Azeroth Audiobook has been strengthened. You have absorbed the power of the Dragon Soul, gained a trace of Arcane Divinity, your Mage Profession level has been increased by 10 levels, and you have gained 10 Mage Skill Points. Achievement reached, Divine Creature, gained 20 Achievement Points. Gained Talent, Arcane Affinity. Mage Profession advanced to Hero Profession Arcane Master. Arcane Affinity, Arcane Energy feels close to you and is willing to obey your command. A series of system prompts made Roger overjoyed. If he weren't in the consciousness space, he would probably have jumped up. The Hunter Profession was upgraded to level 20, and the Mage and Wuji Swordsman were both upgraded to level 22, with 45 skill points and 35 achievement points. If you count the skill points for upgrading Resilience to Legendary, there are more than 18. Before, he was worried about the difficulty of upgrading and the difficulty of obtaining skill points, but now he has obtained more than 60 at once, and nearly 40 have been obtained in addition to upgrading, which is a complete windfall. Moreover, it also pointed out the way to obtain skill points for him, which is to obtain the gift of the world's will or the blessing of a divine creature. Although it sounds a bit difficult, Roger now has a portable power bank, and the dragon power in the demon soul is enough for him to use for thousands of years. 5 skill points for the hunter, 2 points to upgrade farsight to mastery, 2 points to upgrade stealth to mastery, and 1 point to upgrade arcane shot to proficiency. The Wuji Swordsman's 5 skill points upgraded Wuji Swordsmanship, and the enhanced effect of the Grandmaster level Wuji Swordsmanship is as high as 120%. Although it has not been tested yet, Roger believes that his combat effectiveness has improved to a higher level. 10 free skill points were given to the mage, and the mage profession had 35 skill points. 3 points to upgrade arcane missile to master level, 6 points to upgrade arcane hand to master level. He newly learned 10 skills such as blink, polymorph, arcane intellect, mana shield, brilliance aura, create mana gem, create food, slow fall, magic explosion, and magic counter, and then used skill points to upgrade blink, magic explosion, mana shield, and magic counter to mastery level, and arcane intellect, brilliance aura, slow fall, and polymorph to proficiency level. 35 achievement points. 3 points were given to arcane missile, and spell power, quantity, and spell penetration were increased by 70%. Strengthened magic counter, interrupt, backlash, and delay increased by 40%, strengthened mana shield, defense, damage reduction, and reflection increased by 40%, strengthened arcane hand, flexibility, control, and strength increased by 70%, strengthened blink, distance, mana return, and secondary casting increased by 40%, strengthened brilliance aura, range, mana recovery, and defense increased by 40%, strengthened magic explosion, range, spell power, and spell penetration increased by 40%. Strengthened arcane intellect, buff, mana return, and enlightenment increased by 20%, strengthened polymorph, time, suppression, and weakening increased by 20%. 27 enhancement points were spent on mage skills, leaving 8 points. Roger used another 3 points to strengthen arcane shot, spell power, speed, and penetration increased by 20%. Strengthened block, resistance, damage reduction, and damage reflection increased by 20%. The remaining 2 points strengthened underwater combat, breathing and agility increased by 20%. Summary. Character card, Roger's Keyshan, Roger. Information, human of Stormwind Kingdom, 21 years old. Status, mortal. Profession, hunter, level 20. Hero profession, Wuji Swordsman, level 22, Arcane Master, 22. Divinity, Arcane, extremely weak. Title, Demon Bane, Legendary, Orc Slayer, Hero, Stormwind City Warrior, Elite, Stormwind City Knight, Elite, Tactical Master, Elite. Equipment, Phoenix Sun Fury, Epic, Varian Dynasty Armor, Epic. Talents, Unyielding Soul, Endless Knowledge, Azeroth's Will, Strengthened, Steel Body, Strengthened, Arcane Affinity. Wuji Swordsman Skills. Wuji Swordsmanship, Hero, Grandmaster, Skill, Strength, Agility increased by 120%. Block, Hero, Proficient Resistance, Damage Reduction, Damage Reflection increased by 20%. Fearless Charge, Hero, Proficient, Speed, Attack, Control increased by 20%. Windwalk, Hero, Proficient, Stealth, Speed, Attack increased by 20%. Guillotine, Hero, Proficient Jump Speed, Strength, Lethality increased by 20%. Resilience, Hero, Legendary Defense, Recovery, Resistance increased by 190%. Hunter Skills. 100 Steps Piercing Yang, Master, Range, Precision, Attack Power increased by 40%. Create Trap, Proficient. Underwater Combat, Proficient Breathing and Agility increased by 20%. Farsight, Master, Distance, Macro, Micro increased by 40%. Stealth, Master, Visual Deception, Perceptual Deception, True Sight Deception increased by 40%. Feign Death, Beginner. Arcane Shot, Proficient Spell Power, Speed, Penetration increased by 20%. Arcane Master Skills. Create Water, Hero, Beginner Create Detoxification Spring Water, Create Life Spring Water, Create Holy Potion. Arcane Missile, Hero, Master Spell Power, Quantity, Spell Penetration increased by 70%. Arcane Hand, Hero, Master Flexibility, Control, Strength increased by 70%. Blink, Hero, Master Distance, Mana Return, secondary casting increased by 40%. Polymorph, hero, proficient time, suppression, weakening increased by 20%. Arcane intellect, hero, proficient buff, mana return, enlightenment increased by 20%. Mana shield, hero, master defense, damage reduction, reflection increased by 40%. Brilliance aura, hero, master range, mana recovery, defense increased by 40%. Create mana gem, hero, beginner. Create food, hero, beginner. Slow fall, hero, proficient. Magic explosion, hero, master range, spell power, spell penetration increased by 40%. Magic counter, hero, master interrupt, backlash, delay increased by 40%. Chapter 41. When Roger woke up again, it was already winter. Because of Ragnaros, the winter in Redridge Mountains was not cold, and it didn't even snow. The warriors of B Company gathered around Roger, looking at him with concern. Everything they had now was brought to them by Roger. Roger was also surprised by the changes in everyone. He didn't expect that after he woke up, these people had grown to be what they were now. Leaving aside their strength, just the set of Red Dragon equipment far surpassed most of the armies in this world. Perhaps only the spellbreakers of the High Elves could compare with B Company. John recounted what happened after he fainted. After hearing this, Roger immediately opened the magic bag and found the dragon soul inside. He breathed a sigh of relief. He had been worried that the Red Dragon Queen would take the dragon soul away, but now he was finally relieved. Before he obtained the dragon soul, his desire to possess it was just wishful thinking. Now that the dragon soul was in his hands, Roger calmed down instead. With a divine artifact in hand, as long as he didn't act recklessly, there would definitely be no major danger. After he absorbed the energy within the dragon soul, the only threats to him would probably be Sargeras and his two lackeys. So, Roger was very steady now. He then turned his attention to the Red Dragon equipment and used the system to identify it. Onyxia Scale Armor, Epic Armor, an armor made from the scales of the Red Dragon Onyxia, possessing powerful vitality and protection. Onyxia Shield, Epic Shield, a shield made from the scales of the Red Dragon Onyxia, possessing powerful protection, with a high chance of triggering a flame counterattack when blocking. Onyxia Sword, Epic Longsword, a long sword made from the crushed bones of the Red Dragon Onyxia, possessing powerful penetration and attached with flame damage during attacks. Onyxia Axe. A series of weapons all possessed powerful attack power and flame attacks, enough to equip an army of 50 people. Roger pondered. Judging from the Red Dragon Queen's intentions, it seemed like she wanted him to form a Red Dragon Legion. Suddenly, he saw two black pieces of equipment. Deathwing's Scale, Epic Shield, Deathwing's heavy scales with scorching magma. Possesses powerful protection, and when attacked, splashes magma to indiscriminately attack enemies within 10 yards in front. Deathwing's Wing, Epic Longsword, Deathwing's wing bones are tough and light. Possesses powerful attack power with flame and shadow attacks during attacks. Roger was stunned for a moment. Shadow attack? He quickly took out Deathwing's wing, and as soon as he held it in his hand, he heard whispers in his ear. Kishan, you are destined to be a ruler of the world, the whole world is waiting for your conquest. Your strength is destined, do not let anyone stop you. Destroy all the creatures you see. Roger quickly put away the long sword and frowned. Damn it! Is this the temptation of the old gods? If it weren't for the last part, he might have really been tempted. There's something wrong with this sword. Why didn't the system give a warning just now? Roger opened the system, and a new status appeared on the status bar, Old Gods Temptation Ing. It even has English, System, you are so naughty. Not only that, but in the equipment column, the name of Deathwing's wing also had parentheses added, with Shadow Corruption written inside. The system is a bit slow. The system still has limitations. Many hidden attributes can only be revealed after he comes into contact with the item. But in this way, he might be tricked. It seems that he needs to be more careful in the future, otherwise, when facing the old gods, he might be directly mind-controlled. Even the powerful Titan Guardians can be confused, he might be directly mind-controlled. Roger, are you okay? John looked at Roger's changing expression and asked with concern. Roger shook his head, I'm fine. What's the situation now? Is there any news about the orcs? No, we have been hiding our tracks and have not gone to scout. Roger nodded without asking more questions. He looked around at the environment. This habitat had actually been turned into a camp by B Company, with many functional buildings inside. It seemed that these people were too idle, so they played building blocks in this valley. Map. John spread out the map, pointing to the mountains. This is our current location. Roger compared it and found that this valley was roughly the same as Morgan's Vigil in the game. Of course, this map was not the game map, but was drawn by John and others themselves over the past few months. Roger noticed that there was actually a road in the eastern part of the mountains. Where does this road lead to? Go north. Roger pointed in the direction of Black Rock Spire. We need to find out what places the orcs have occupied and how many troops they have deployed. I think Lord Lothar should have found reinforcements by now, and this information will be very useful to him. Lord Aaron, Lothar was deploying a battle plan. Beside him were the newly established alliance leaders. Archbishop Alensis Fail, with his disciple Benedictus, paladins led by Uther, high elf rangers led by Alleria Windrunner, naval commanders led by Dalen Proudmoore, army generals led by Danath Trollbane, Dalaran mages led by Anton Idus. The Wild Hammer dwarves have sent intelligence that they have discovered orc figures in the troll territory of the hinterlands. A month later, the Bronzebeard dwarves reported that troll headhunters had appeared in the orc in Loch Modan. They have allied. Everyone was a little uneasy after reaching this conclusion, including Alleria. Trolls were originally enemies of humans and high elves, and they have been impossible to eliminate for thousands of years. Instead, after a period of recuperation, the number of trolls has increased. They couldn't get any advantage in Eversong Woods, so they shifted their target. They constantly infiltrated Stratholm and the hinterlands, causing great trouble to the humans and dwarves living there. It was because of a common enemy that the relationship between humans and dwarves became close. Over the past few hundred years, the two sides have constantly exchanged experiences in dealing with trolls, and their friendship has deepened. Our battle lines have been stretched. We must cut off the connection between the orcs and the trolls. Lothar looked at the map of Lord Aaron, feeling a little overwhelmed. If Roger was here, he would have given the best advice. Chapter 42. On the snow-covered plains of Hosmodan, a team of Orcish transports was struggling to advance. The rapid change from the burning steppes heat to Hosmodan's cold was making the orcs miserable. However, they couldn't complain, as Orgrim was leading a large army to attack Ironforge. Everything edible that could be found in Hosmodan had been scavenged by Orgrim, but the Orcish army was still blocked outside Ironforge. Orgrim was worried but helpless. Ironforge was built against the mountain, and there was only one path leading up, making it impossible to deploy a large army. The dwarves relied on the treacherous terrain, advancing step by step, constantly using the terrain for defense, causing heavy losses to the orcs. If Orgrim hadn't personally gone to the hinterlands, repeatedly begging Zul'jin to ally with the trolls, the orcs might not have even been able to reach Ironforge's gates with their ranged attacks. Although dwarves were short, they were strong, and their combat skills were better than the orcs. In addition, they had a deep understanding of technology, inventing ranged weapons such as muskets and mortars, and even creating powerful weapons like tanks. Although the orc warlocks and death knights possessed powerful spells, they were helpless against steel behemoths like tanks. However, this would also place a huge burden on the orcs. After consuming almost all the edible resources in Hosmodan, Orgrim had to transport supplies from the burning steppes in Loch Modan. Hurry! We must reach Karanos before dark. The Orcish overseer constantly whipped the laborers. If they couldn't deliver the supplies on time, he wouldn't be spared either. The laborers continued to exert themselves, and the convoy's speed finally increased slightly. Soon, the convoy entered a mountain path, and the wind and snow seemed to lessen due to the obstruction of the nearby mountains. The orcs breathed a slight sigh of relief, as the next part of the journey would be much smoother. Just then, an arrow struck, shooting the overseer off his wolf mount. Then, a dozen humans in red armor rushed out, slaughtering the orcs like chopping melons and vegetables. The wolf mount tried to escape, but a hand grabbed its reins, and the powerful force rendered it immobile. John directly straddled the wolf mount. The aura of the red dragon armor caused the wolf mount to prostrate on the ground. Damn it! John cursed in frustration. He had originally wanted to find a mount. Because of the red dragon armor, war horses would lose control of their bowels upon seeing them and had to be released into the camp. He had thought the orc wolf mounts would be able to resist the dragon's aura, but they were only slightly better than the war horses and still couldn't be ridden. Casually shooting the wolf mount with an arrow, Roger said, "Stop thinking about these things and clear the battlefield." The B Company soldiers immediately collected the more valuable supplies from the supply wagons into magic pouches, and the grain was burned along with the wagons. Just as Roger and his men disappeared, a team of wolf riders was attracted by the smoke. They saw the unburnt grain and immediately jumped off their wolf mounts to put out the fire. However, as soon as they approached the supply wagons, a barrage of magic and arrows rained down, reaping the wolf riders' lives. Seeing their masters die tragically, the wolf mounts immediately turned and fled. Roger and his men finished off the wolf riders and disappeared once again. For several days, Roger cut off the orcs' supply lines. The lack of supplies for several days enraged Orgrim. Since ordinary wolf riders couldn't deal with the enemy, he would send those who could. Talon Bloodscorn received the task and headed towards Karanos. Soon, he saw smoke in the south. Talon Bloodscorn immediately rushed over and found another supply team had been attacked. Talon Bloodscorn ignored the burning grain and focused his attention on the woods beside the road, where he sensed the presence of living beings. "Heh, you are trying to ambush me." Talon Bloodscorn sneered and waved his staff, sending a barrage of shadow bolts into the woods. Many trees were corroded and crashed down, revealing the B Company soldiers hiding behind them. Talon Bloodscorn. Enemies were bound to be extremely jealous when they met. Roger looked at Talon Bloodscorn with gritted teeth and said coldly, "Pay for the deaths of the Stormwind Kingdom." With that, Roger raised the Phoenix Bow and continuously used arcane shot. Talon Bloodscorn didn't dodge, allowing the arrows to pierce his body. The slight arcane damage from the arrows didn't cause the slightest fluctuation in his shadow power. "So, it's you." Talon Bloodscorn was also surprised. Back then, Roger's body was severely corrupted by shadow, and even if he didn't die, he would be greatly affected. But looking at Roger now, it seemed like he had removed the shadow corruption. "Roger, don't waste time talking to him. Let's attack together, we can definitely kill him," John said. "Heh." Talon Bloodscorn cackled again, "Did you think I was alone?" He raised his left hand, and countless shadow energies surged towards the corpses on the ground. Under the control of the shadow energy, the orc corpses quickly stood up, their eyes glowing with a scarlet light, and lunged towards everyone. "Damn it! What is this?" The B Company soldiers were startled. How did these corpses come back to life? Just an application of necromancy. Talon Bloodscorn laughed triumphantly. "This is a little trick I discovered recently, perfect for practicing on you." John blocked the corpse rushing towards Roger. "Roger, what do we do now? What else can we do?" "Fight." Roger took out the flame blade, used Windwalk, and charged towards Talon Bloodscorn. Talon Bloodscorn calmly slammed his staff on the ground, sending a wave of shadow shock around him, knocking Roger out of stealth and knocking John and the others to the ground. The corpses immediately swarmed over, tearing and biting at everyone. Talon Bloodscorn pointed his staff at Roger. "I told you, I won't let you escape again." Shadow Bolt. But the next moment, the Shadow Bolt rebounded, accompanied by a large amount of magical lava, tearing his undead warhorse into a skeleton. Talon Bloodscorn fell to the ground. Roger stood in front of him, holding a dark long sword in his hand, and stabbed it into his body. Arcane, fire, and shadow energies tore Talon Bloodscorn's body into pieces, leaving only his head. Before losing consciousness, he saw the B Company soldiers neatly turning the corpses back into corpses, giving him a disdainful smile. He had been fooled. Killed Death Knight Talon Bloodscorn, the Blade Master leveled up to 23, and gained 3 Blade Master skill points. Roger used the 4 skill points to upgrade Windwalk and Guillotine to Master, then ignored the whispers of the old gods and put the Wings of Deathwing back into the magic pouch. "I told you, I would kill you." Chapter 43. Roger buried the head of Tayran Bloodwhale. Although Tayran Bloodwhale's sins were grave, General Crispin was innocent. After building a small tomb on the frozen earth, Roger led B Company away. A day later, Ogrim arrived with the main force. He looked angrily at the remnants left on the path. "Have you found out who the enemy is?" The orcs shook their heads, indicating they didn't know. "Perhaps I know." Gul'dan hobbled forward. "Warkif, Tayran Bloodwhale's soul has not dissipated." Ogrim's eyes flickered. "Gul'dan, find Tayran Bloodwhale's soul." "As you command, Warkif." Gul'dan lowered his head and walked towards the tomb, beginning to cast a necromantic spell. A faint shadow condensed from the tomb, the Orcish image of Tayran Bloodwhale. "Bloodwhale!" Gul'dan's voice contained a peculiar fluctuation, awakening Tayran Bloodwhale from his daze. Gul'dan. Tayran Bloodwhale was taken aback, immediately realizing his situation. Am I dead again? That's right. Gul'dan asked, tell me, Bloodwhale, who killed you? Roger Kisham, that human who stole the Fireblade Blade Master's legacy. Tayran Bloodwhale's words stirred the orcs. Roger, the Orc Slayer, wasn't just a name, it instilled fear in many orcs. The Fireblade Blade Masters, however, weren't afraid of Roger, shouting and asking, where is he? Not many, only about 20. But they are all well equipped, with armor that looks like it's made from the scales of some creature. Tayran Bloodwhale remained depressed, which displeased Ogrim. He turned to Gul'dan and said, give him another body. I need a fearless knight, not a coward. As you wish. Gul'dan replied, following orders. Ogrim turned and looked at the surrounding chieftains. Keelrogue, Kargath, Maim, take your men and search the entire snowfield. Dar, the Fireblade Blade Masters will follow you 3 in batches. You must find Roger. Yes, sir. The 4 chieftains spoke in unison. They immediately mobilized their troops and set off in different directions. Ogrim remained at Karanos, ready to provide support at any time. However, for several days, there was no sign of B Company. Moreover, supply convoys continued to be attacked. Ogrim was helpless. In the end, he could only leave Maim to lead the army to block the gates of Iron Forge, and send a large number of troops to escort supplies. The main force set off for Loch Modan, preparing to advance north. Instead of wasting time on Iron Forge, it was better to defeat the humans to the north first, and then turn the army to attack Iron Forge. By then, consuming Iron Forge with the resources of the entire continent would be an easy task. On the summit of Hosmodan, Roger watched the Orcish army leave, turning to the dwarf beside him and asking, Rura, can we go to Iron Forge now? Rura Stonehoof, the owner of Stonehoof Farm. After the orcs occupied Stonehoof Farm, Rura Stonehoof hid with his goats in the mountains of Hosmodan. When Roger was evading the orcs, he accidentally encountered Rura Stonehoof, and then asked him to take him to Iron Forge. However, Rura Stonehoof was very wary, and only agreed after Roger promised him that he would make Ogrim lead the army away from Iron Forge. Now that Ogrim had led the Orcish army to Loch Modan, Rura Stonehoof readily agreed. All right. Human, we'll go to Iron Forge now. However, many orcs are still stationed at the gates of Iron Forge, so we can only go over the mountains. I hope you can keep up with the herd. With that, Rura cracked his whip and drove the goats towards the mountains. Take off your armor, put away your weapons, we won't need to fight next. After giving the order, Roger looked at Rura, your goats should be rideable, right? Rura laughed, my goats don't have very good tempers, you need to be able to ride them. However, those 2 are exceptions, they're too heavy and will break my goats. John and Caracol looked at each other. Was it their fault they were tall? This wasn't fair. But looking at the size of the goats, it was indeed difficult for them to bear their weight. Helplessly shaking their heads, they sullenly watched the others happily go to ride the goats. They had ridden horses and dire wolves, but riding goats was a first. Just as they mounted the goats suddenly became violent, throwing them hard to the ground. Ha ha ha! Rura let out a hearty laugh, my goats are the strongest in all of Dunmarok, but they also have very bad tempers. If you can't subdue them, you can't ride them. John and Caracol also laughed gleefully, are you guys useless? You can't even ride a goat. Everyone was speechless. Weren't goats supposed to be docile? How could there be such violent goats? Roger also found it very funny. These goats were the dwarves' mounts, how could they be docile? He walked towards the goats, and Rura asked with a smile, you want to try too impossible, why doesn't it get angry at you? Roger stroked the goat's head and said with a chuckle, maybe I look more friendly. Everyone curled their lips. With all the killing intent on your body, you dare to say friendly? But they quickly became suspicious, could it be that the killing intent made the goats afraid to resist? Thinking of this, several people tried to release their killing intent and walked towards the goats. As a result, the goats rammed into them, knocking them to the ground, once again eliciting a burst of laughter. In addition to laughing, Rura was secretly observing Roger, but still couldn't see anything special about him. Roger easily mounted the goat and said with a smile, if you can't ride the goats, you'll have to climb the mountain yourself. Everyone was at a loss, and many people looked at Rura, hoping to get guidance from him. But Rura gave them a helpless expression, "We all rely on strength to subdue the goats, there is no other way." As for why Roger was an exception, who knew? Rura mounted his goat and led the herd into the mountains of Hosmodan. Helpless, everyone could only follow behind on foot. Chapter 44. As the most solid fortress in this world, Ironforge has an overwhelming geographical advantage. If Rudra hadn't led the way, Roger doesn't know how long it would have taken to find the entrance. Looking at the entrance of the tunnel in front of them, the B Company soldiers couldn't help but sigh at the dwarves' skill in digging tunnels. The dwarven guards vigilantly looked at Roger and the others, asking Rudra, "Rudra, who are these people?" "They are soldiers of the Stormwind Kingdom," Rudra said. "They attacked the orcs' supply lines, and the orcs couldn't withstand it, so they withdrew most of their army." Hearing this, the dwarven guards were relieved. "Welcome to Ironforge, our friends. Dwarves are just so straightforward. They can be wholeheartedly devoted to friends, but they will fight to the death with enemies." Rudra said, "You should report to His Majesty Magni." "They want to see His Majesty Magni." "All right. But you will have to wait a long time." The guard explained, "The tunnel is a bit long, and it will take me half a day to go back and forth." Roger opened his mouth, somewhat surprised by the length of the tunnel. But thinking about the tunnels through Loch Modan and the wetlands, and then thinking about the subway from Ironforge to Stormwind, it seems normal to walk through a tunnel for half a day. "All right. We can wait." Roger didn't rashly suggest entering Ironforge directly. After all, it is wartime now. Although humans and dwarves are friendly, they haven't formed an alliance yet, so it's understandable that the dwarves are being cautious. The dwarven guard went to report, and Roger and the others rested at the tunnel entrance. Rudra asked the dwarven guard for a lot of rum. "Friends, let us drink to reaching our destination." The B Company soldiers looked at each other, feeling that the reason for this toast was a bit casual. Shouldn't it be a toast to the friendship between the two races at least? Roger raised his glass and clinked it with Rudra's, then drank it all in one gulp. Although he wasn't a big drinker, due to his use of magic and the blessing of life, he had advanced metabolism, so he usually couldn't get drunk. Even if he did get drunk, he could use arcane magic to expel the alcohol from his body, just like using the six-vein divine sword. Seeing Roger's boldness, Rudra laughed heartily. "Roger, you are my best friend, Rudra." Dwarves are straightforward, and they admire two kinds of people the most, people with great strength and people who can drink. If someone has both, they will consider them a confidant. Roger had already demonstrated his strength before, and now he demonstrated his drinking capacity. Rudra even had the mind to become sworn brothers with him, if dwarves had the tradition of becoming sworn brothers. By cheating, Roger quickly got Rudra drunk. The dwarven guards on the side reluctantly came up to take over, and one by one they were drunk by Roger. At first, Roger was surprised that the straightforward dwarves would actually cheat and use a rotation strategy, but the rolling throats of those dwarves who hadn't drunk let Roger know that they were just craving alcohol. When the dwarven guard who went to report returned, he was immediately dissatisfied when he saw the dwarves lying all over the ground. "You guys, you actually drank alcohol while I was away, it's just too hateful." Fortunately, he knew he had important matters to attend to, so he resisted the temptation of the rum. Next to the great iron anvil was Magni Bronzebeard's palace. Actually, it should be called a room. Because this room, which should have been a palace, had no other symbols to reflect Magni's royal power except for a throne. Dwarves are just so simple and unadorned. Magni Bronzebeard stood up from the throne. "Welcome, friends. The Bronzebeard dwarves will forever remember your help to Ironforge. Your Majesty, you are too kind." Roger saluted and then said, "Faced with the threat from another world, we should unite." "You are right, my friend," Magni said, "but the dwarven population is small, and the power that can be contributed is not much. After the War of the Three Hammers, we have been recuperating, but because of the long lifespan, the dwarven birth rate is very low. In addition, many dwarves like to adventure, so the number of dwarves has not increased much. If the number of dwarves could reach the level before the War of the Three Hammers, even just the number of Bronzebeard dwarves, the orcs would not be able to block the gate of Ironforge." The B Company soldiers all looked at Roger, thinking that Roger had come to Ironforge for help. But Roger didn't have this idea at all. He said to Magni, "Your Majesty, I understand the difficulties of the dwarves. Besides informing you of the orcs' strategic intentions, I also have two things to ask for help. I want to go to Lord Aaron with the help of the dwarves. Magni breathed a sigh of relief. This is not difficult. In the underground of Iron Forge, there is a tunnel leading to the wetlands. If you go out of the tunnel, you will soon reach Manethil Harbour, and then take a boat from there to Lord Aaron. Thank you, Your Majesty. Roger took out the Wings of Death. The second thing is about this sword. I found some dark energy on it. You are the best sword maker in the world, and I think you should have a way to help me solve this problem. Oh. Magni was a little surprised, but he immediately took the Wings of Death to check it out. Magni is indeed one of the best sword makers in the world, and he quickly discovered the problem with the sword. This aura is very ancient, but it also feels familiar to me. Fortunately, the dark aura on it is not very strong, and it can be purified with holy light. Magni immediately asked the guards to find a priest to come over, and after a while, several dwarven priests rushed over. Magni fixed the long sword, and the priests kept using purification spells until the dark energy on it disappeared. Magni checked the Wings of Death again, and after confirming that all the dark aura had disappeared, he returned it to Roger. Okay, you can use this sword normally in the future. It is a good sword, it should be made of dragon bones, and it has very profound magic on it. You have a good eye. Roger praised, but didn't delve into the topic. He had to keep the secret of the dragon soul, and even reduce related topics. Alright. You guys rest for a while, I will take people to send you to the wetlands tomorrow morning. Thank you, Your Majesty. Roger said, but before we leave, please allow me to introduce the orcs' strategic intentions to you, so that you can make the next judgment. Magni was a little surprised. He thought that the orcs' strategic intentions were just an excuse for Roger to seek help. Chapter 45. The next morning, Roger arrived in the wetlands accompanied by Muraden Bronzebeard. After listening to Roger's analysis yesterday, Magni realized the orcs' ambition to occupy the entire continent. He knew that if the Bronzebeard dwarves only cared about Iron Forge, no one would come to help them when the orcs attacked Iron Forge in the future. Therefore, Magni sent his brother Muraden to Lord Aaron with Roger to discuss an alliance with his old friend Lothar. In addition to this, Muraden had another mission, to gather all the dwarves in the wetlands to avoid the Orcish onslaught. He was also to implement the scorched earth policy proposed by Roger, denying the orcs any supplies in the wetlands. Furthermore, he was to have the dwarves of Dunmoder retreat to the north side of the Thandal span, using the terrain to hold the orcs south of the Great Fissure, buying time for the human alliance. After everything was settled, Muraden and Roger set sail from the wetlands, arriving on the west coast of Lord Aaron. Entering Lord Aaron City, a lively atmosphere greeted them. The arrival of war had not affected the residents here, as if the mobilized armies had nothing to do with them. People gathered in small groups, discussing the gossip of the nobles and the latest news of the alliance. Of course, many were still discussing the graceful figures of the high elves and their own wishful thinking. Roger chuckled to himself. It seemed that LSB's, lecherous same person, existed in every world. Soon, the group arrived at the military camp. The guards reported to Lothar, and before long, Lothar came out with a group of people. Muraden. My friend. Lothar warmly embraced Muraden and then introduced him to the people behind him, Oryr representing the High Elves, Antonidas, Dalen Proudmoore, and other high-ranking members of the Alliance. Todman walked over at this moment. I thought you weren't coming back. I'm a tough one, sir. Roger said with a smile. Let's go. Come with me to report for duty. The Duke still has matters to attend to, and he will send someone to notify you later. Roger nodded. His current status was not enough to participate in the high-level meetings of the Alliance. After all, the Alliance was not Stormwind Kingdom. In Stormwind Kingdom, he could rise through the ranks with Lothar's appreciation, but in the Alliance, the stakes were high, and rules could not be broken. Arriving at Todman's office, Roger, John, and the others told Todman about the fall of Stormwind City. Todman was stunned, his mouth wide open. You guys killed thousands of orcs in the past few months? Burned dozens of supply convoys? And even forced the orcs to give up the siege of Iron Forge? More or less. Roger said. They concealed the related events of the Dragon Soul, and everyone chose to keep it a secret. Todman shook his head in disbelief. What you've done is too great. It's exceeded your authority. I'll report it to the Duke when I see him later. Roger nodded in understanding. According to Stormwind Kingdom's promotion methods, these merits were enough for him to become a colonel or even a general. Just as the group was getting up to leave, Lothar's personal guard walked over. Major Todman, the Duke wants you and Rogers to go see him. Let's go. Todman took the diary with him and led Roger to Lothar's office. Rogers, welcome back. Lothar said easily, I've been worried sick these days you've been gone. I've been so busy these past few months that I'm about to lose all my hair. Now that you're back, you've been a great help to me. Roger smiled as he looked at his already prominent bald spot. Sir, you flatter me. No, no exaggeration. Lothar said, I need your strategic vision. Todman interjected at this moment, Sir, perhaps you should first take a look at Roger's report for duty. Oh? Is there a problem? Lothar took the diary and, after reading a few pages, looked at Roger in surprise. You really did create a miracle. Ms. Egwin gave us a lot of help. Roger didn't take all the credit. Lothar nodded, indeed, without the equipment from Karajan, it seems it would have been difficult for you to accomplish such a miracle. But don't forget, leaving Karajan behind was also your idea. He patted Roger on the shoulder. Moreover, you also killed Talon Gorfiend, allowing General Crispin to rest in peace. If the situation weren't so bad now, I would have asked Varian to grant you a title. The situation is bad. Roger looked at Lothar in confusion. Lothar explained somewhat awkwardly, it's the nobles of Stormwind City. After arriving in Lord Aeron, they quickly mingled with the nobles here. Then, they used public opinion to smear us. If it weren't for His Majesty Teranaz's wisdom, the alliance wouldn't exist today. Roger's eyes turned cold. We haven't even settled the score with them for the fall of Stormwind City. Are they courting death? Lothar knew Roger was feeling unbalanced. Roger, don't worry, I guarantee you will get a title after the war is over. A title? Roger smiled contemptuously. He didn't really care about titles, and was even a little resistant to them. Because getting a title meant becoming a noble, and the thought of having the same status as those dirty nobles made him feel disgusted. Cheer up. Lothar changed the subject, turning his gaze to the map on the wall. I need you to help me set up a defensive line. The Orcish army has already reached the wetlands, and we can't let them continue north. Once they go north, we will have to abandon the Irati highlands and retreat to the Wall of Stromgard. If the Wall of Stromgard is breached again, we can only retreat to Alterac. By then, the orcs can completely bypass Lake Lordamir and attack Lord Aeron City. At that time, we will really be overwhelmed. Hearing Lothar's words, Roger also looked at the map. Chapter 46. At the Sardo Bridge, Orgrim stood on the hilltop. Behind him, dozens of catapults continuously hurled stones towards the north side of the bridge, relentlessly bombarding the dwarven positions. The tenacious dwarves braved the stone rain, repelling the Orcish attacks time and time again. Although they lacked steel behemoths like tanks, they possessed a fearsome weapon that the orcs dreaded: explosives. Long before the orcs arrived, the dwarves had installed a large quantity of explosives on the Sardo Bridge. If they couldn't hold the line, they would immediately detonate the explosives and destroy the bridge. In fact, they had already blown up one. As soon as the orcs arrived in Dun Modr, they launched a surprise attack on the Sardo Bridge, with the Burning Blade clan leading the charge. A single assault brought them to the dwarven positions on the north side of the bridge. Seeing the situation was dire, the dwarves immediately detonated the western side of the bridge, sending hundreds of elite dwarven warriors and more than a dozen Burning Blade masters plummeting into the abyss below. Perhaps some orcs survived the fall, but they were quickly devoured by countless Naga and Murlocs. Orgrim feared that the dwarves would destroy the other bridge as well, which would block his army in Dun Modr. Orgrim excelled at surprise attacks. Unable to break through the Sardo Bridge head-on, he chose to circle around from the side. In Manethil Harbor, the orcs collected many ships that hadn't been taken away in time. Orgrim ordered Maim Blackhand to lead an army north by sea, bypassing the Sardo Bridge to launch a surprise attack on Stromgard, flanking the dwarves from behind. Maim received the important task, but his face showed no excitement, instead appearing somewhat gloomy. This was because he had received this mission to redeem himself for his failures. The disappearance of the Dragon Maw clan had been exposed, including the warlock Necro's Skull Crusher, whom Orgrim valued. As the supervisor, Maim was guilty of serious dereliction of duty. If Orgrim didn't still trust him, he would already be a corpse. The moment he received the mission, Maim resolved to complete it at all costs. Unfortunately, because the orcs didn't understand navigation, the fleet's position was off. They sailed into a bay and were attacked by Naga. Sea monsters, they're scuttling the ships. Maim hurriedly ordered, turn around, sail back. It's too late. An orc ran up from below deck and shouted, the bottom of the ship has already been breached, chieftain, we must beach. Bang! Mame slammed his fist hard on the railing, saying unwillingly, beach at full speed. Once ashore, he would make those Naga pay the price. The ships moved forward at full speed, quickly running aground on the shallows. The orcs jumped off the ships one after another, engaging the pursuing Naga in a fierce battle. Although the water was the Naga's domain, the Naga were exceptionally agile, constantly twisting their bodies to evade the orcs' attacks. Even if they were hit, their scales could cushion the impact. In contrast, the orcs were at a disadvantage in every way, moving slowly in the water, and their heavy armor only made them more cumbersome. For every one time they attacked a Naga, the Naga could attack them 3 times. If their armor wasn't thick enough, they would have been killed by the Naga long ago. Shriek! A bolt of lightning struck an orc, instantly paralyzing him. The Naga seized the opportunity, thrusting the trident in its hand fiercely into the orc's head, killing him. Mame looked up and saw a female Naga in the distance staring at him coldly. Retreat to the shore. Mame knew that encountering spellcasters was very disadvantageous to the warriors in this environment, and decisively ordered a retreat. The orc warriors retreated while fighting, finally retreating to the shore at the cost of more than a dozen lives. The Naga pursued relentlessly, and behind the Naga, a large group of murlocs surged from the sea, dragging the orc corpses back into the water. Just as the orcs and Naga were in the heat of battle, someone was spying on them from the hilltop in the distance. B Company, prepare for battle. It was Roger who was spying on the orcs. His eagle eye had long discovered the orcs sailing from afar and had watched them sail into Faldar Bay. He had long anticipated that the orcs would attack by sea, so in his proposal to Lothar, he had suggested that the Kul Tiran naval fleet patrol South Shore, Western Gilneas and the Tol Barad Sea area respectively. Without the Red Dragons, the orcs were no match for the Kul Tiran navy at sea. If he didn't want the orcs to die at sea, Roger would have had the Kul Tiran navy recapture Manethil Harbor. If he really did that, the Kul Tiran navy would lose its purpose. At the same time, the Alliance army would have to fight the orcs in the harsh and complex environment of the wetlands, where the orcs had suffered a lot in Draenor and would be more adapted to the environment of the wetlands than the Alliance army. Exploiting strengths and avoiding weaknesses is not what a wise man would do. That's why Roger suggested that Lothar arrange the Kul Tiran navy in this way, giving the orcs hope so that they would court death. As for Stromgard, because it was surrounded by mountains, making large-scale marches impossible, there was no need for naval protection. Stromgard could be vigilant over a large area of the sea, and by building a few watchtowers in the mountains, guarded by a few elite soldiers, they could prevent Orcish surprise attacks. B Company was one of the most elite units in the Alliance, and Roger had taken the initiative to accept this mission. Firstly, to stay away from the politically complex area of Lord Aaron, to avoid being backstabbed by nobles. Secondly, to find a place that wasn't the orc's main target, giving him time to continue absorbing the energy of the dragon's soul. Mame exerted force, making himself fall to the ground quickly, hoping to dodge the arrow. But that arrow didn't shoot directly at him, but aimed at his landing point. Pfft! The arrow pierced his shoulder fiercely, causing him to grit his teeth in pain. He roared and turned to the archer, about to launch a charge. But 4 or 5 arrows shot in succession, continuously piercing his body, and the last sharp arrow pierced his throat. Killed Orc Chieftain Mame Blackhand, Hunter level increased to 21, gained 3 Hunter skill points. Achieved Achievement Orc Chieftain, gained 5 achievement points. Chapter 47. After killing Mame, Roger immediately used Flash and appeared between the orcs and the Naga, using Arcane Explosion before they could react. The arcane energy, imbued with divinity, erupted violently, instantly blasting all the orcs and Naga around him away. In mid-air, the arcane energy continuously tore at their bodies. Armor was shattered, and some fragments pierced the bodies of the orcs or Naga, causing secondary damage. The orcs and Naga who had already lost their ability to fight and were waiting to die were directly torn into pieces by the arcane energy. Roger used Arcane Explosion again, blasting all the orcs and Naga still alive in mid-air to death. Crack! A bolt of lightning shot towards him, but Roger casually raised his shield and blocked it. Roger turned to look and saw the Naga Witch glaring at him fiercely. Roger smiled, raised his hand, and fired a volley of arcane missiles. The Naga Witch quickly cast a lightning shield on herself. The arcane missiles struck the lightning shield, immediately creating a burst of lightning. The dazzling light of the lightning blinded the Naga witch for a moment. Before she could recover, an arrow pierced her body. The Naga witch looked at the arrow in her chest in disbelief. She never expected that she would lose to a human. She fiercely gathered her last bit of lightning energy, wanting to die together with Roger. Unfortunately, Roger raised his hand, and an arcane blast struck her body. The energy she had gathered instantly collapsed, and lightning continuously tore at her body. Counter spell. Taking advantage of the Naga witch being hit by the backlash, Roger fired another volley of arcane missiles at her. Killed Naga witch, Arcane Master level increased to level 23, gained 3 Arcane Master skill points. Achieved achievement Naga witch, gained 5 achievement points. John and the others also killed the remaining orcs, with only a few Naga escaping into the sea. B Company's soldiers cleaned up the battlefield, and Roger looked at the spoils of this battle, 8 skill points and 10 achievement points. The Hunter's 4 skill points were used to upgrade sharpshooting to master level with 3 points, and multi-shot was learned with 1 point. The Arcane Master's 4 skill points were used to upgrade Arcane Intellect and Polymorph to expert level. The 10 achievement points were used American Samoa follows, 1 point to complete underwater combat, increasing strength by 20% during underwater combat, 3 points to enhance create trap into magic trap, increasing elemental damage, control duration and creation speed by 20%, 3 points to create food, increasing buff duration, satiety duration and buff effect by 10%, and the last 3 points to multi-shot, increasing arcane power, accuracy and damage by 10%. The gains in strength were secondary, the most important thing was disrupting the orc's sneak attack. Maim Blackhand's appearance here made his purpose self-evident. Now that all the orcs who were planning to attack the Thandal span had died here, it would be too difficult for Orgrim to cross the Thandal span. A few days later, Orgrim had not received any news from Maim, which made him very annoyed. He decided that he could not wait any longer and immediately sent assassins to control the detonator. If Garona were here, that slave's abilities would definitely be able to complete this task. Now, the only person he could trust was Dal Threefold Bloodfang. Chieftain, I guarantee to complete the mission. Although Dal Threefold Bloodfang was not very convinced of Orgrim as the Warkif at first, after observing him for so long, Orgrim was indeed much stronger than Blackhand. When Blackhand was in charge, he couldn't even deal with the Kingdom of Stormwind. As soon as Orgrim took over, he conquered Stormwind City and successfully conquered the Dark Iron Dwarves, forcing the Bronzebeard Dwarves to huddle in Iron Forge. Although the Orc army was now blocked at the Thandal span, Dal believed that Orgrim would definitely lead the Orcs to conquer this continent. I'm counting on you, Dal. Orgrim said solemnly. Dal Threefold Bloodfang gathered the most elite Burning Blade Masters and sneaked across the bridge under the cover of night. Using Windwalk from time to time, they quickly sneaked into the dwarves' camp. Soon, they discovered the detonator in a simple fortress. Dal saw that there was only one dwarf in the fortress and immediately arranged for the others to guard the perimeter of the fortress, while he entered the fortress to destroy the detonator. Using Windwalk, he quickly reached the detonator and raised the sanguine blade in his hand, aiming it at the detonator. Just as he was about to swing down, the dwarf who was lying on the ground sleeping suddenly moved and threw his hammer at Dal Threefold Bloodfang. Dal Threefold Bloodfang was shocked and quickly dodged the hammer, which was carrying powerful lightning energy. The hammer smashed into the stone wall, unleashing a huge burst of lightning that knocked Dal out of stealth. Rogers was right after all. When the dwarf stood up, Dal discovered that he was much taller than the other dwarves. But what shocked Dal even more was the dwarf's words, "The sword in your hand is the sanguine blade, right? Then you must be Dal Threefold Bloodfang, the chieftain of the Burning Blade clan." The dwarf suddenly swung the battle axe in his hand, and lightning flickered continuously on it. The battle axe slammed into the ground. "Come on, let me see how strong you are." Lightning spread from the ground towards Dal Threefold Bloodfang, and Dal Threefold Bloodfang quickly dodged. Then, he channeled the fire energy in his body into the sanguine blade. With a thick flame, Dal swung his sword towards the detonator. He did not forget his mission, but the dwarf did not let him succeed. The dwarf rushed to the detonator at a speed that did not match his size, raised his battle axe, and blocked the sanguine blade. The flame swept towards the dwarf due to inertia, but the dwarf didn't even blink. The flame on the sanguine blade was also resisted by his rock-like skin, and only his beard was slightly scorched. The dwarf parried the sanguine blade, reached out and pulled the warhammer from the stone wall, and used it to change the direction of his attack. The warhammer and battle axe constantly attacked Dal. Dal was deeply shocked. This dwarf's strength was too great. If the sanguine blade in his hand were replaced with an ordinary flame blade, it would probably have been scrapped in the dwarf's attack long ago. This enemy could not be fought head-on, so Dal immediately cast mirror image, wanting to confuse the dwarf. But the dwarf didn't even look at the mirror image, recognizing Dal's real body and attacking continuously. How is that possible? Dal took the dwarf's attack head-on and then distanced himself from the dwarf. He looked at the dwarf in disbelief. Who exactly are you? Why can you see through my mirror image? The dwarf looked at Dal triumphantly. Your mirror image is very exquisite, but it can't escape my intuition. Orc, don't think that we Bronzebeard dwarves are really afraid of you. Remember my name, I am Muraden Bronzebeard. Dal became cautious. According to the information obtained from the Dark Iron Dwarves, Muraden was the second of the Bronzebeard brothers and a powerful mountain king. Because the Bronzebeard dwarves retreated to Ironforge, Dal had been somewhat dismissive of this information. But now it seemed that Muraden was completely worthy of being called powerful. Chapter 48. Despite Muraden Bronzebeard's strength, Doral Threeblade did not abandon the mission. Since a clever approach was impossible, a direct assault was the only option. Doral Threeblade eased his numb hands, gripped his sword again, and charged towards Muraden Bronzebeard. The flames on Sanguis burned even more fiercely, like a fiery whip. Within this small fortress, the fire whip instantly dominated the interior, continuously spewing flames at Muraden Bronzebeard. Ha! Muraden Bronzebeard roared, and as his figure swelled, it was covered in a layer of rock. A good opportunity. Doral, seeing Muraden without one of his weapons, immediately cast Wind Walk. Although Muraden couldn't see Doral, he could roughly sense his position. He raised his battleaxe and chopped at Doral, who was in the shadows. Clang! Doral was knocked out of stealth. However, the next second, Doral's body rapidly shifted, suddenly becoming 4. Mirror image. Muraden was stunned for a moment, quickly pinpointing Doral's location, wanting to attack again. But Doral once again cast Wind Walk, rushing to the detonator one step ahead. As Sanguis destroyed the detonator, Muraden's battleaxe slammed into his back. Doral coughed up a mouthful of blood, and Sanguis suddenly erupted in a large burst of flames, obscuring Muraden's vision. When the flames dissipated, Doral had disappeared. Muraden subconsciously looked outside the fortress, only to see a hunched figure releasing a fiery signal into the sky. Muraden's lips curled slightly, but he quickly retracted it. Then, he roared, "Damn orcs, you won't succeed!" He leaped out of the fortress, his battleaxe aimed at Doral. Already heavily injured, Doral didn't dare to linger in battle, calling for the blade masters who were holding off the dwarves to retreat towards the bridge. On the south side of the bridge, Orgrim, seeing Doral's signal, immediately swung the doom hammer. Warriors of the Horde, charge! The waiting orcs roared, charging towards the bridge in droves, attacking the dwarven lines on the other side. The blade masters hadn't retreated yet, harassing the defending dwarves while dodging the rampaging Muraden. With the Orcish army about to charge, the dwarves desperately turned and fled. A smile appeared on Doral's face. Victory! Several fireballs descending from the sky solidified his smile. Boom! Huge fireballs exploded continuously on the bridge. Orcs were constantly blown away. Those thrown off the bridge had virtually no chance of survival, and those who fell on the bridge were seriously injured. Orgrim, about to cross the bridge, was instantly stunned and furious. He abruptly turned and roared, "Gul'dan! Stop those damned spells!" Gul'dan looked towards the hilltop on the left side of the camp. More than a dozen human mages were constantly conjuring magic. Gul'dan raised his staff, and a bolt of fell energy shot into the sky. Then, a fell meteor streaked across the sky, crashing into the small hilltop on the other side. Boom! The mages were knocked to the ground. A huge stone golem burning with fell fire slowly stood up, roaring loudly at them. "Damn it! It's a Doom Guard!" The knowledgeable Dalaran mage reminded his companions again. But even knowing that, they had no way to deal with this golem. Just then, a tall figure rushed out, leaping onto the stone golem's back. Enduring the burning fell fire, he thrust his long sword into the stone golem's head. The stone golem shattered, and the tall figure collapsed to the ground. "John!" Messner exclaimed, quickly flashing over and helping him up. John waved his hand, saying weakly, "Don't worry about me, continue casting magic." Messner nodded vigorously, quickly channeling his mana, continuing to cast fireball on the orcs on the bridge. Without the mage's interference, the orcs restarted their advance, about to charge down the Thandal span. Just then, Muraden picked up his warhammer, leaping to the bridgehead, blocking most of the orcs on the bridge. Muraden in avatar form was virtually invincible, killing all the orcs who dared to challenge him. However, some orcs still bypassed him and charged down the bridge, attacking the dwarves. Doral Threeblade, having escaped Muraden's pursuit, immediately ordered the Blade Masters to cooperate with the Orcish warriors to kill the dwarves. After clearing out the other dwarves, Muraden alone would be much easier to deal with. He didn't believe Muraden could maintain his current state forever. When Muraden fell out of avatar form, that would be the moment of his demise. The Blade Masters charged towards the fleeing dwarves, but just as they were about to catch up, the dwarves suddenly scattered to both sides of the road. In front of the cleared path, a group of human knights radiating holy light charged like a whirlwind. The knights charged while casting holy light on the Blade Masters. Then, they rode close to the Blade Masters, their long swords and warhammers shimmering with holy light taking their lives. Doral Threeblade's heart felt like something was clutching it. Out of dozens of Blade Masters, only a dozen or so escaped using Wind Walk. What magic did these mysterious cavalrymen use? How could the Blade Masters not know to dodge? Doral didn't have time to think, because the cavalry had already charged into the dwarven camp. He quickly cast Wind Walk, fleeing towards the mountains to the east. In his current state, encountering these cavalrymen would mean certain death. Fleeing far away, Doral looked back at the dwarven camp. The knights were slaughtering the orcs like chopping melons and vegetables. Damn it! When did humans possess such powerful cavalry? Not long ago. A voice came from behind. Doral abruptly turned around, but only saw a barrage of arcane missiles coming at him. Doral immediately cast Wind Walk to escape, but he was a step too slow. The arcane missiles shattered his stealth. He immediately cast Mirror Image, trying to confuse the enemy. But at that moment, a huge hand composed of arcane energy grabbed him and his images. An arrow imbued with arcane energy instantly pierced his throat. In the instant before closing his eyes, he saw a young human standing not far away. That was the person he had always wanted to hunt down, Rogers Kaisham. Chapter 49. Killed Warlord D'Arthun. Triple Blood of the Burning Blade Clan, Hunter level increased to 22, Arcane Master level increased to 24, Skill Points, 5. Gained all the heritage of the Burning Blade Clan, new skills available for Blade Master, Mirror Image, Blazing Blade, Flame Body. Obtained the Burning Blade Clan's Holy Sword, Sanctuary, Achievement, Blazing Blade, gained 10 achievement points. Roger picked up D'Arthun's weapon. This is Sanctuary. Sanctuary, epic weapon, can unleash powerful attacks after being infused with the power of flame. Roger had seen many epic weapons. Excluding the legendary artifact, Dragon Soul, the only thing on him that could compare to Sanctuary was Deathwing's Spine. The Red Dragon weapons and Phoenix Bow were also epic, but both had their flaws. The Red Dragon weapons were mass-produced. They were nominally dragon-forged weapons, but in reality, there was still a big gap from being truly dragon-forged. The Phoenix Bow's gorgeous appearance showed that it was more for collection. If the bowyer had put the effort of creating the appearance into the bow itself, its power would have been at least one level higher. Sanctuary's construction seemed very simple and unadorned. Its appearance even looked a bit ugly, but its smooth curves could very well respond to the user's skills. It was designed for killing. He learned all 3 skills and used all the achievement points to strengthen them. There was no change after Create Water was upgraded. Roger was just about to experiment when a dazzling holy light burst out in the distance. Muraden had already fallen from the Heavens state. Although Heavens had no side effects such as weakness, it still consumed a lot of his stamina. Fortunately, his reinforcements had arrived. Uther had arrived with the paladins. Dozens of paladins successfully blocked the orcs at the bridgehead, preventing them from crossing Thunder Pool. The paladins infused the bridge with holy light. As long as the orcs who drank demon blood stepped on the area infused with holy light, they would be burned by the holy light. The holy light scurried around in their bodies, attacking the demon blood in their blood. Of course, the demon blood was not willing to be purified, and the two constantly tore at the orcs' blood, muscles, and even skin. In this state, it was difficult for the orcs to defend, let alone attack. Warhammers containing holy light constantly took the lives of orcs, and wave after wave of orcs fell at the feet of the paladins. Orgrim looked at the paladins blocking the bridgehead, the dwarves constantly attacking with muskets and mortars, and the mages who had resumed their attacks, and immediately felt overwhelmed. Gul'dan, stop those damn mages! Orgrim continued to order, Cho'Gall, have your ogres launch an attack and destroy those glowing humans for me. The cunning master and apprentice looked at each other and dared not object. Gul'dan immediately directed the warlocks to cast fell magic to interfere with the mages on the mountain. Soon, the mages' fireballs stopped. They turned their targets and poured magic on Gul'dan. Unfortunately, the powerful Gul'dan easily defused the mages' attacks. Cho'Gall did not personally take action like his teacher. He waved his hand and released mass bloodlust on the ogres behind him, driving these ogres with soaring figures towards the bridge. The ogres, who were already tall, were now no different from giants. The dwarves' muskets were no different from tickling them, and the explosions of the mortar shells were easily resisted by their thick skin. Soon, they rushed to the paladins, raised the axes or maces in their hands, and smashed them at the paladins. You still want to be fierce in the face of the holy light? Uther glared angrily, holding a warhammer in one hand and grabbing the holy book in the other. The holy book moved automatically without wind, and a large amount of holy light burst out of thin air. A huge flame fell from the sky and bombarded the ogres. The holy flame ignited the holy light on the ground, instantly engulfing the ogres. The ogres didn't even scream before being burned to ashes by the holy flame. Roger looked at the annihilated ogres in astonishment, his heart filled with jealousy. The first generation of paladins really had dog shit luck and gained such powerful power for nothing. This group of first generation paladins all gained powerful power through infusion. The operating principle is very similar to that of the Guardians. It's just that Dalaran infused the magic power of everyone into one person to create elites. The first generation of paladins had 5 people and played mass production. Even so, the priests of the entire kingdom of Lord Aaron infused the holy light into 5 people, and the power was still extremely powerful. Even if Roger obtained the dragon soul, his strength did not increase as quickly as these people, so how could he not be jealous? This is just Uther, one of the first generation of paladins. If all 5 of them come, wouldn't they push the front line to the other side of the bridge in minutes? Ah! Damn it, what power are these humans using? It's so terrifying. Cho'Gall's 2 heads made fearful cries, attracting Orgrim's disdain. He didn't expect these ogres to be so timid. He regretted summoning these ogres from Draenor. Fortunately, he still has an army that doesn't know fear. Bloodmage, it's your turn. Terran Gorfiend looked coldly at the front. His fear had been drawn away by Gul'dan. Now, even if he faced Sargeras, he would dare to launch a charge. Death Knights, advance! Terran Gorfiend took the lead and led the Death Knights onto the Thandal span. The orcs gave way to them. Uther looked at the approaching Death Knights and was extremely angry. Damn orcs, you dare to desecrate the dead! The paladins with justice in their hearts were also angry. As they were angry, the holy light on their bodies continued to condense, and everyone was sanctified. They launched a charge towards the Death Knights, vowing to judge these sinners who desecrated the dead. The Death Knights felt agitated. Although they no longer had fear, they could still feel the threat of the holy light. They raised their weapons in unison, and countless shadow energies spewed out towards the paladins. The paladins immediately activated Divine Shield, rushing to the Death Knights in the face of shadow energy, raising warhammers full of holy light, and slamming them on the Death Knights. Under the erosion of the holy light, the bodies of the Death Knights quickly dissolved. Their souls screamed in pain. Some of the weaker Death Knights were directly killed, and their souls quickly left their bodies and flew towards Gul'dan. In one round, the Death Knights were defeated. The orcs no longer dared to attack. Blade Masters, Ogres, and Death Knights were the 3 most powerful arms of the Horde. Now that all 3 had failed in front of the Paladins, where did they still have the courage to launch an attack on the Paladins? Chapter 50. Orgrim was shocked and furious. He never imagined that the orcs would be stopped by humans in a frontal confrontation. He had already recognized the power used by the humans, the holy light used by the Drania. Back then, the Drania also relied on the powerful holy light to block the orcs' attack. How did the orcs win back then? Thinking of this, he looked at Gul'dan, who was still going back and forth with the mages. Could it be that human mages are so powerful? Draenor also has mages, and ogre magi are extremely powerful. Cho'Gall is one of the best among them. However, Cho'Gall embraced fell energy and became Gul'dan's disciple. It seems that mages are also very strong. Orgrim gripped the doom hammer tightly, his voice laced with coldness. Gul'dan, can't you even deal with a few mages? Gul'dan was shocked. He quickly noticed that the orcs in front were frustrated. He immediately gave Cho'Gall a look, and then slammed his staff on the ground, causing fell energy to surge into the sky. Countless fell meteors streaked across the sky, smashing towards the bridge and the opposite cliff. He said weakly, "Warkif, the warriors have lost their will to fight. Let's retreat first." Orgrim said, "I hope you can give me a satisfactory explanation." Immediately, he issued the order to retreat. Gul'dan was right. Continuing to fight would not bring any benefits other than increasing casualties. The paladins wanted to pursue, but the infernals summoned by Gul'dan blocked their path. Even with the holy light protecting them, they still couldn't quickly deal with these stone golems. Even some paladins with high consumption were quickly burned by the fell fire on the infernals, damaging their bodies. Damn it! Uther reluctantly gave up the pursuit and instead focused on clearing the infernals. Roger also rushed back. After using arcane missiles to attack the infernals, Roger also discovered the anti-magic runes on them. Arcanagus said that anti-magic runes have always been the focus of mages' research. As long as they master the anti-magic runes, they can easily deal with spellcasters. The High Elf spellbreakers are mages who have mastered the anti-magic runes. He wanted to remember the anti-magic runes for research, but the anti-magic runes on the infernals disappeared too quickly. Roger frowned slightly and raised his hand to cast Arcane Brilliance on himself. This wasn't the first time he had cast Arcane Brilliance on himself, but this time he had a different experience than before. "Rogers, John is injured." Roger was shocked and quickly took John over, only to find that his body had suffered serious fell fire damage. Masona flashed over, "John jumped on the back of an infernal to save us." Although he killed the infernal, he was also burned by the fell energy. Hearing this, Roger breathed a sigh of relief. He quickly made a dispelling spring water and poured it into John. After pouring 4 or 5 bottles in a row, the fell fire was dispelled. However, John's body was still covered in scars. His flesh had been corroded by the fell fire and was a bloody mess, as if he had been splashed with sulfuric acid. Roger made another life spring water, another 4 or 5 bottles, before the flesh on John's body healed. Caracal, the silly big guy, didn't notice anything unusual, but Masona opened his mouth wide and looked at Roger in shock. "Are you creating water? Why is it different from mine?" "That's because you don't have a buff." Roger didn't want to explain. Seeing that John had woken up, he punched him on the shoulder and said in a reproachful tone, "Let you be brave." John laughed foolishly, "I can't just watch Masona and the others get killed." Roger was speechless. He wanted to refute John, but he didn't know what to say. Should he be selfish and only care about himself and not others? Not to mention whether this was in line with Roger's moral values, John would definitely not agree. Although John is reckless, he is definitely not a person who is afraid of death. In the game, John was able to lead Masona and others to defeat countless enemies and finally face a black dragon, relying on his courage. Although he is a bit silly, he really makes it impossible to blame him. Roger could only say harshly, "If there is a next time, I will definitely not save you." John smiled sheepishly and dared not answer. He knew that Roger was still angry, so it was best not to offend him at this time. All the infernals were cleared and the battle was over. The dwarven camp was full of corpses, dwarves, humans, but more of them were orcs. The warriors cleaned the battlefield, the priests and paladins treated the wounded, and the mages surrounded the corpses of the infernals, studying the anti-magic runes on them. But unfortunately, the anti-magic runes were not explicit and did not appear on the corpses of the infernals. The mages tried to attack the corpses of the infernals, but did not activate the anti-magic runes, which disappointed them. Roger found a quiet place and absorbed the energy in the dragon's soul. "You have absorbed the power of the dragon's soul, gained a trace of arcane divinity, your mage class level has increased by 5 levels, and you have gained 10 mage skill points." Without saying a word, Roger directly learned the anti-magic runes. This skill is very unique, it cannot be upgraded, it is what it is when you learn it. Anti-magic runes, create anti-magic runes, which can enchant items to prevent any magical energy from moving. It looks very strong, but it's a bit of a chicken rib. Enchanting objects is indeed very strong. If it is attached to the shield, it can be like a spell breaker and can resist any magical attack. But, if the enchantment is given to magical items, will the abilities of the magical items themselves be prohibited? To verify this, Roger took out a red dragon shield and enchanted it, and the result was the same as he thought. Alexstrasza's anti-magic shield, epic, a red dragon shield enchanted with anti-magic runes, has powerful protection and can resist spell attacks. The ability to counterattack with fire disappeared. If this is enchanted on Captain America's vibranium shield, it would be perfect. Roger shook his head, he was still too greedy. It's good to have a shield that can resist magical attacks, why do you need a bicycle? With the remaining 14 skill points, 5 points to upgrade arcane missiles, 5 points to upgrade arcane hand, 3 points to upgrade mana shield, and 1 point to upgrade create food. Chapter 51 Dunmodr, Orcish Base Camp. The Orc chieftains glared at Gul'dan, clearly feeling that Gul'dan was holding back his strength, ending their tribal power. Wise and brilliant Warkif. Gul'dan looked at Orgrim with flattery, you should know that human mages are not the same as ogres. When ogres gain magic, only a small number of them use it. Most of them are ignorant beasts, and only two-headed ogres know how to cast spells. But humans are different. All humans can become mages. What limits them is not talent, but class. In the human world, there is a magical city called Dalaran, which has a brilliant magical civilization and thousands of mages, with endless spell-casting techniques. And what about ogres? The number of two-headed ogres is only 100, how can they be compared with humans? Orgrim narrowed his eyes, leaned forward and asked, so, Gul'dan, are you saying that you have no way to deal with human mages? Of course not. Gul'dan said quickly, of course I have a way. But, Warkif, this method may not be acceptable to you. Orgrim frowned, obviously he knew what Gul'dan was talking about. Thinking about everything Gul'dan had done in Draenor, Orgrim's heart was filled with disgust. Do you want to destroy this world? Gul'dan lowered his head, Warkif, it depends on your orders. Humph. Orgrim snorted coldly, and then asked, besides this, do you have any other way? Gul'dan's eyes turned, Warkif, it seems we can rely on our allies. Allies. Orgrim thought of the orcs' only ally Zul'jin. Since the alliance, Zul'jin has been asking him to go north to help the trolls attack the high elves of Kulthalas. However, Orgrim didn't want to do this, because he felt that it would be more in the interests of the orcs to push all the way, defeat the humans, occupy their territory, and then fulfill the agreement with Zul'jin. Because once the high elves are defeated, the trolls can ask for more land, which is obviously not what Orgrim wants to see. But now it seems that the orcs alone cannot defeat the humans, and giving the trolls some benefits is not something that cannot be considered. Warkif. Honorable Lord, we have discovered a new road east of Grim Batol that leads directly to the sea. Orgrim's eyes lit up, and he immediately thought of an excellent tactic. At this time, a high elf ranger came to the dwarf camp and brought an important message. The blade master who escaped from the battlefield had fled to the troll-infested Deadwood village. If they persuaded the trolls there to attack the dwarf camp together, then the dwarf camp would be in a dilemma of being attacked from the north and south. Uther immediately decided to send an army to annihilate the trolls of Deadwood village, led by Lord Alexandros Mograine. Rogers, after annihilating the trolls of Deadwood village with Mograine, you will go to Airy Peak. Rogers frowned slightly, but still agreed. Mograine looked at Rogers proudly, depart in half an hour. As a traditional aristocrat, Mograine was also influenced by the public opinion of the Stormwind nobles and had a bad impression of Rogers. Rogers sneered in his heart, what are you pretending to be? If it weren't for your stubbornness, how could you have been killed by your son in the end? At the same time, Rogers also deeply realized that the consequences of the smear campaign by the nobles far exceeded his expectations. This is still on the front line, and so many nobles are targeting him. If he were in Lord Aeron, wouldn't he be unable to move an inch? However, this does not mean that Rogers will give in. Right on the dot of half an hour, Rogers appeared at the gathering place. Mograine glanced at him unhappily, but said nothing. After all, Rogers was not late, and he couldn't find an excuse to target Rogers. But that doesn't mean he will let Rogers go like this. Seeing that Company B didn't have horses, he immediately shouted, depart. Then he led the cavalry out of the dwarf camp, without waiting for Rogers and others to catch up. Rogers curled his lips in disdain and directly led Company B towards the mountainous area in the east. Company B could not ride horses because of their armor. Relying on 2 legs alone, they would definitely not be able to catch up with the cavalry. But that doesn't mean he will lag behind. He can take a shortcut. The cavalry on the main road needs to bypass a canyon and a mountain to go east, while on foot, they can reach Deadwood Village by walking along the mountainous area. One takes a right angle, and the other takes a straight line. It's not certain who will arrive first. When bypassing the hill, Mograine looked at the empty rear and sneered, "Let's go." He was determined that as soon as he arrived at Deadwood Village, he would launch an attack. If Rogers didn't catch up with the battle, he could report that Rogers had disobeyed orders. In this way, even if Lothar protected Rogers, Rogers would inevitably be punished. Mograine and Rogers did not know each other, but this did not prevent him from looking down on Rogers. Rogers was just a commoner. No matter how capable he was, Lothar should not listen to him, and even do things that harmed the interests of the nobles. He didn't dare to express his dissatisfaction with Lothar, who was famous, so he naturally vented his resentment on Rogers. What made Mograine confident was that his targeting of Rogers did not arouse the dissatisfaction of the Holy Light. The creed of the Paladin told him that the Holy Light represents justice. The Holy Light did not prevent him from targeting Rogers, which means that the Holy Light also felt that his behavior was just. However, what he didn't know was that the Holy Light has no distinction between good and evil. It only favors all those who have something to protect. As for whether the thing being protected is good or bad, the Holy Light doesn't care at all. It was because of this stubbornness that Mograine was created in the future, a powerful Paladin Lord, the Master of the Ashbringer. Similarly, it was this stubbornness that ruined him, causing him to lose his life in the hands of his own son. Mograine rushed all the way to Deadwood Village and found a hidden place to rest. At this time, more than 20 people walked down the mountain. Mograine looked over vigilantly, but was stunned to find that it was Rogers and Company B. You. The knights were also surprised. Didn't they lose them? How could they appear here? And it looked like they had arrived long ago. You guys are so slow. John looked at the knights mockingly, "Are you riding turtles? Bastard!" The knights were very angry when they heard this and stood up to rush over. "Come back!" Mograine shouted coldly, then stared at Rogers. However, there was no expression on Rogers' face. "Hurry up and rest. The trolls have just noticed your arrival, and they will come to your door soon." Mograine snorted lightly. He didn't believe Rogers' words at all. They were very careful when they came. How could they be noticed by the trolls? Kill! A loud shout came from Deadwood Village. Although it was in troll language, Mograine, who had been dealing with trolls for many years, still understood the meaning. "Damn it! Prepare for battle!" Mograine shouted loudly, while putting on his armor. He had taken off his armor just now to rest. Chapter 52. Rogers, block them! Mograine stopped halfway through his order. He originally wanted Rogers to lead people to block the trolls to buy them time. But wouldn't that mean he was bowing his head to Rogers? Although Mograine was stubborn, he still had his pride. If Rogers really blocked the trolls for him, he would really have no face to target Rogers in the future. Rogers raised an eyebrow at Mograine. "You guys better hurry, or you won't even get the soup." With that, he led B Company towards the Deadwood Village. However, before they could act, the humans attacked first. Chieftain Deadwood knew that their plan had been exposed and immediately decided to launch an attack proactively. Zul'jin had already sent intelligence that the humans, dwarves, and elves had formed an alliance. Once the humans knew that they were involved in the war, they would definitely eliminate Deadwood Village first. The location of Deadwood Village was too important. As long as they blocked the main road to the west, they could cut off the Alliance Army's supply line. The trolls were overjoyed when they saw the human knights hastily donning their armor from afar. A knight without armor and a horse was like a tiger without teeth. Although fierce, it was not fatal. The opportunity to strike a drowning dog was right in front of them. How could the trolls not be ecstatic? They charged forward with strange cries, wanting to catch the knights off guard before they were ready. However, halfway through their charge, they saw a small group of human troops walking over, seemingly unafraid of death, and then a huge fireball flew towards them. Boom! Several trolls were directly blown away, and the other trolls were somewhat dazed. At that moment, a figure flashed into their midst, and a powerful arcane magic erupted from this person, sending the stunned trolls flying. Although arcane energy caused considerable damage to the trolls, it was not as fatal as fire magic. Although the trolls suffered varying degrees of injury, not many died. Their powerful vitality was the foundation of their survival. Rogers certainly knew this. The reason he did this was entirely to disrupt the trolls' charging formation. Kill! John roared and charged towards a troll with the red dragon longsword. The red dragon longsword easily pierced the troll's heart, and the fire attack erupted from the red dragon longsword, directly burning the troll's heart to ashes. After losing its heart, the troll's body convulsed and fell to the ground, closing its eyes unwillingly. Caracal was even more brutal, wielding 2 red dragon battle axes, 1 axe for each troll he encountered, giving them a thorough chill. Then, the fire attack attached to the red dragon battle axes scorched the troll's internal organs, killing them. Red dragon weapons were the nemesis of the troll's powerful regeneration ability. Coupled with the superb skills of the B Company soldiers, they quickly chopped down a large group of trolls. Damn humans! Chieftain Deadwood was furious and charged towards the tall Caracal. He regarded Caracal as the commander of B Company, wanting to capture the leader to defeat the army. However, the Blade Masters of the Burning Blade, mixed among the trolls, recognized Rogers at a glance. Several of them activated Windwalk and quickly rushed towards Rogers. Even if only a few of them remained, they still had to reclaim the Burning Blade's heritage and not let the humans steal it. Rogers sneered when he saw the Blade Masters of the Burning Blade entering stealth. He took out Sanctuary, infused it with arcane energy, and Sanctuary immediately burst into flames. The Blade Masters of the Burning Blade were shocked when they saw Sanctuary. Their holy sword had actually fallen into the hands of this human? Then what about the chieftain? Just as they were guessing whether Dar Kondrathir was dead, Rogers suddenly swung Sanctuary, and a huge wave of flames swept around. Damn it! The Blade Masters of the Burning Blade hurriedly stopped, but they were moving too fast and could not avoid the flame attack. Fortunately, they were good at mobilizing fire elements and did not suffer too much damage. However, they also revealed themselves from stealth. The Blade Masters of the Burning Blade wanted to activate Windwalk again when one of them suddenly sensed danger and quickly used Mirror Image. A flaming blade passed through his after image. He would have been killed if he had been a second slower. However, just as he was rejoicing, a surge of arcane energy swept over, directly shattering his mirror image clone and throwing him into the air. Before he could react, a flash of fire passed, and he lost consciousness. The other Blade Masters of the Burning Blade looked in horror at the 2 halves of the corpse on the ground. They never expected that a powerful Blade Master of the Burning Blade would be killed by Rogers in this way. They looked at each other and immediately made a common decision. Run! Save whoever can! But how could Rogers let them run away? Activating Windwalk, he chased after a Blade Master of the Burning Blade. Sanctuary swung out, cutting the Blade Master of the Burning Blade and several trolls beside him into 2 pieces. Then he quickly flashed, appearing in front of another Blade Master of the Burning Blade. The Blade Master of the Burning Blade crashed into Sanctuary head-on, unable to even dodge. How terrifying is a warrior who can blink? Anyone who has played the game should know. And Rogers not only knew how to blink, but also magic. An arcane hand controlled the Blade Master of the Burning Blade, and then Sanctuary beheaded him. A barrage of arcane missiles broke the stealth of a Blade Master of the Burning Blade, and a dauntless charge plus decapitate split the Blade Master of the Burning Blade in half. In less than half a minute, the last Blade Master of the Burning Blade looked at the devil in front of him, his eyes filled with fear. A few months ago, Rogers was completely at their mercy. But now, they had no power to resist Rogers. How was this possible? The Blade Master of the Burning Blade couldn't understand, but he attributed it to magic. As long as Rogers didn't use magic, he might have a chance to kill Rogers. Thinking of this, the Blade Master of the Burning Blade wanted to make a final attempt. He threw the flame blade in his hand on the ground. Human, I want to duel you. Rogers often used arcane intellect to learn, and he already knew some Orcish. Hearing that the Blade Master of the Burning Blade wanted to duel him, he couldn't help but laugh. Duel? With you? The Blade Master of the Burning Blade said, Makgora, let's have a Makgora, without using magic, purely relying on skill. Rogers laughed again. Orc, don't waste your time, I'm not interested in your traditions at all. The Blade Master of the Burning Blade was anxious. Are you afraid? Or are you only good at using magic and not good at using martial skills at all? If that's the case, the last heritage of the Blade Masters of the Burning Blade is wasted on you. Rogers became interested when the heritage of the Blade Masters of the Burning Blade was mentioned. To be honest, although he had fought many Blade Masters of the Burning Blade, he had never really seen how high their fighting skills were. On the battlefield, the Blade Masters of the Burning Blade relied more on Windwalk and Mirror Image to kill people. Apart from killing with one blow, there were no skills to speak of. You got your way. Rogers put away Sanctuary, took out 2 ordinary weapons, and threw one to the Blade Master of the Burning Blade. I hope you don't disappoint me. Chapter 53. The Blade Master caught the longsword, looking at Roger cautiously. This was his last chance. Even if it meant fighting to the death, he had to kill Roger and eliminate a great threat to the orcs. Kill! The Blade Master roared and charged towards Roger, raising his sword to strike. Roger easily dodged. The Blade Master continued his assault, attempting to sweep Roger's waist and abdomen. However, Roger was faster, already creating distance between himself and the Blade Master. Growing anxious, the Blade Master relentlessly attacked, but Roger evaded each blow. Moreover, during his evasions, Roger casually killed 2 trolls who strayed into the dueling circle. Seeing Roger effortlessly dodging his every attack, the Blade Master's heart sank. It seems your skills are nothing special. Roger mocked, then said, it's time to send you to hell. With that, Roger surged forward, his long sword launching its first attack. The Blade Master tried to dodge, but only saw a flash of sword light before a single thought remained in his mind: too fast. Achievement unlocked, the last Blade Master, earned 5 achievement points. Blade Master Training Methods. Blade Master Training Methods? Roger briefly examined it, finding it somewhat useless to him. He already knew most of the Blade Master's skills, and the ones he didn't know were ones he couldn't use. Somewhat troubled, Roger set aside the Blade Master Training Methods and refocused his attention on the battlefield. Under the powerful attacks of B Company soldiers, the trolls were already in disarray, desperately fleeing towards the Whispering Forest. B Company soldiers pursued and killed those who were too slow to escape. Mograine, who had finished putting on his armor and mounted his warhorse, was stunned by the scene. Having dealt with trolls for many years, he naturally knew how troublesome they were. With their strong vitality, trolls managed to survive in the gaps between human settlements. In the Stratholm region, they frequently suffered troll incursions. For this reason, Stratholm had built numerous watchtowers to monitor the trolls' every move. Even his territory, Tyr's Hand, was far from the watchtowers but still faced the threat of trolls. Before becoming a paladin, Mograine wasn't confident he could easily defeat trolls. After becoming a paladin and witnessing the power of the Holy Light, he no longer considered trolls a threat. However, Roger and B Company were not paladins. Even if there were a few mages in B Company, it still wouldn't be easy to defeat hundreds of times their number in trolls. His paladin squad couldn't do it, and even his hundreds of cavalry would need to expend considerable effort to defeat thousands of trolls. B Company did it in just a few minutes. How was this possible? Not only Mograine was stunned, but also the knights behind him who were ready for battle. They suddenly realized that it seemed they weren't needed. Roger and the others could handle the Whispering Forest trolls. The adjutant opened his mouth, asking the question everyone wanted to ask: Sir, do we still need to fight? It seemed like they didn't need to. Mograine immediately banished this thought from his mind. He led hundreds of cavalry here, was he just here for a military parade? Thinking of this, he knew he had no choice. Everyone assemble, prepare to charge. The knights immediately perked up. Although doing so might seem like stealing credit, they felt ashamed to not even fight. Led by Mograine, the knights charged towards the fleeing troll forces. B Company soldiers immediately cleared the way for the cavalry charge. Although they hadn't had enough of the killing, they had already lost interest. Since following Roger, they had only fought a few hard battles, the rest were all crushing victories. Beating a dog in the water was fun, but it became meaningless after doing it too much. Now that friendly forces were taking over the battlefield, they were happy to stop and watch the show. They gathered around Roger, waiting for his orders while tending to their wounds. Although protected by the red dragon armor, that didn't mean the soldiers wouldn't get hurt. Especially Caracal, who had faced the powerful Whispering Forest chieftain and was almost shot through the throat by a thrown spear. Fortunately, he reacted quickly and used his battle axe to deflect the spear, narrowly escaping death. However, the Whispering Forest chieftain still left several wounds on his face and neck, none of which were fatal, but enough to leave indelible scars on his face. Roger had distributed the waters of life to them in advance, and their wounds quickly healed after drinking it. Roger activated the Brilliance Aura, restoring mana to the casters. Let's go take a look at the Highlands. Without taking the Whispering Forest village, Roger's mission wasn't yet complete. Looking towards the Whispering Forest village, the knights' attack was going very smoothly. They chased the fleeing troll forces into the Whispering Forest village, then slaughtered all the trolls inside, regardless of whether they were women or children. Roger felt no emotion in his heart. Given the hatred between humans and trolls, any amount of slaughter was understandable. The ancestors of Western Holy Mothers could kill off an entire continent's natives to seize land, so Maugraine's slaughter was insignificant in comparison. Finding that the cavalry didn't need support, Roger turned his attention to the system. Having just killed the Blade Master and a large number of trolls, Roger's Juggernaut had reached level 25. He used 2 skill points to upgrade Mirror Image to the Mastery level, giving it some combat capability. The 5 achievement points from the last Blade Master achievement were used to strengthen the Anti-Magic Rune. Anti-Magic Rune strengthens anti-magic intensity, weakens impact on self, permanent enchantment. After strengthening the Anti-Magic Rune, Roger re-enchanted the Aurastraz Anti-Magic Shield, replacing the previous enchantment. Then, the Aurastraz Anti-Magic Shield immediately gained a new effect: blocking has a chance to trigger a fire attack. Seeing this result, Roger immediately beamed with joy. He immediately took out the Deathwing sword and shield and inscribed the anti-magic rune on it. Deathwing Anti-Magic Shield, Legendary Shield. Deathwing's thick scales carry scorching magma. Possesses powerful defensive capabilities. When attacked, splashes magma, indiscriminately attacking enemies within 10 yards in front. Enchanted with the anti-magic rune, possesses powerful anti-magic abilities. Deathwing Anti-Magic Sword, Legendary Longsword. Deathwing's wing bones are hard and light. Possesses powerful attack power. Attacks deal fire and shadow damage. Enchanted with the anti-magic rune, possesses powerful anti-magic abilities. 2 legendaries. Chapter 54. Roger's saliva was practically drooling out of his mouth with excitement. 2 legendary equipment pieces. One had to know, in the history of the World of Warcraft, how many legendary level equipment pieces were there. Even adding the artifacts that flooded the later versions, it wouldn't exceed 100. But now, he possessed 3 legendary equipment pieces, truly blessed by the heavens. Soon, he noticed the information on the system interface. It seemed that these 2 orange equipment pieces couldn't compare to the Dragon Soul at all. Dragon Soul, an artifact crafted by the guardian dragon Neltharion, possessing the life force of the red dragon, the dream power of the green dragon, the arcane power of the blue dragon, and the time power of the bronze dragon, capable of unleashing a powerful rainbow light to kill enemies. The word artifact was clearly written above, obviously different from the descriptions of the 2 orange equipment pieces. Wait, why does it say artifact, but the equipment column says legendary level? Are artifacts and legendaries the same thing? Roger was a little confused, not knowing where the problem lay. Could it be that only by gathering the earth power of the Black Dragon on Deathwing could the Dragon Soul become a true artifact? Couldn't figure it out. Roger put the Dragon Soul aside and focused on the Black Dragon sword and shield again. If they couldn't compare to the Dragon Soul, so be it, Roger wouldn't force it. As long as they could compare to Thunder Fury or Sulfuras, even if they couldn't compare to Thunder Fury or Sulfuras, being comparable to class artifacts would be acceptable. Even the worst orange equipment was stronger than epic. The knights finished clearing out the Grim Totem trolls, and Maugraine was also counting the spoils of war. Although this battle was easy, they still lost more than a dozen knights. If Roger hadn't defeated the trolls early on, the number of knights lost in this battle would have been much higher. Right, where's Roger? Maugraine looked around, trying to find Roger's whereabouts. Just then, an arrow shot at his feet, with a note attached. Maugraine picked it up and saw only 2 words written on the note: goodbye. Maugraine looked in the direction the arrow came from, and saw Roger leading B Company towards the north on the hillside outside Grim Totem village. He left? Hinterlands, Airy Peak Outpost. Sedan de Throhan looked sternly at the trolls rushing from all directions and said with some dissatisfaction, Tyrion, why didn't you let me lead the troops myself? It's not time yet. Tyrion Fordring said, you should remember Lord Lothar's order, we can only garrison here until Roger's Kishan arrives. If you personally take the field, the trolls might notice the change. What change could there be? De Throhan said unhappily, besides, why wait for that commoner kid? Can't we execute the order? Fordring shook his head slightly, disagreeing with de Throhan's low opinion of Roger. But he could also understand that de Throhan, known as the High Lord, was simple-minded and easily influenced by noble rhetoric. Fordring was different from them, he had a good impression of Roger. Putting aside the noble's one-sided remarks, he didn't find anything wrong with Roger. On the contrary, in the battle reports, Roger was brave and resourceful. Without Roger, it was hard to say how many citizens the kingdom of Stormwind could have saved. Not to mention that before the war, all the nobles of Stormwind City were sent to Lord Aaron. It could be said that the Stormwind City nobles were alive because of Roger, although they lost some money, but what is money compared to life? Dethrohan said irritably, when will that kid come? Are you just going to watch the soldiers die in this meaningless defense? I'm also anxious. Fordring said, although I don't know the combat style of an elven ranger, Roger's combat style is indeed different from humans. It's just bullying the weak and fearing the strong. Seeing Fordring praise Roger, Dethrohan couldn't help but retort. Alleria shook her head gently. Talking about tactics and strategy with this brute was a waste of breath. She gently sipped her elven fruit wine, looking at the trolls outside the outpost. She wanted to go out and kill the enemy more than anyone else. These were the enemies she had been fighting for thousands of years. Want some rum? Kurdran asked, holding a large wine glass. Alleria glanced at him, you should go drink with that big guy. Kurdran turned to look at Dethrohan, and immediately shook his head, forget it, I'll just drink alone. Dethrohan was respectfully called the High Lord and valued military discipline very much. One of the military rules was that drinking was not allowed during combat. Kurdran was an ally, and Dethrohan couldn't control him, but if a human were drinking at this time, Dethrohan would definitely let him taste the whip. Just as Kurdran tilted his head back and finished a glass of rum, an elven ranger ran over in a hurry. General, Roger's Kishan has arrived at Yagowatha. Yagowatha? Alleria put down her wine glass, passed down the order, prepare for battle. Yes. The ranger immediately went down to pass the order. Fordring also stood up abruptly, Abides, prepare for battle. Yes, prepare for battle. Kurdran also hurriedly put down his wine glass and strode out of the outpost. Dethrohan looked coldly to the west, wanting to see what this Rogers wanted to do. The Alliance army was fully prepared, and Roger and the others arrived at Airy Peak outpost in due course. He looked at the prepared Alliance army and nodded with satisfaction. The troops sent to the hinterlands were all elite soldiers, enough to give the orcs a hard time. Dethrohan strode towards Roger, you're finally here, quickly tell me the location of the advance. Roger glanced at him, then looked at the other Alliance generals, this time, our advance is aimed at the east. The east. Dethrohan was stunned, the east is the sea. That's right, it's the sea. Roger said, the orcs are blocked at the Thandal span and will inevitably look for other places to attack. The west of the continent is defended by the Kul-Tiran navy, only the east has no naval defense. And the only places on the east coast where the orcs can land are the eastern coast of the hinterlands, Tyr's Hand, and Zul-Aman further north. Zul-Aman. Alleria looked at Roger in surprise, you're saying the orcs will land in Zul-Aman? That's inevitable. Roger said, the Kul-Tiran navy is incredibly strong, and Tyr's Hand is guarded by troops, which the orcs won't choose. If we repel the orcs landing here again, then Zul-Aman will become their last landing point. Alleria's expression changed suddenly. Wouldn't Eversong Woods be in danger? Roger said softly, Lord Lothar has already sent people to notify Kulthalas and has asked Baron Rivendare to form an army to support Eversong Woods at any time. Hearing this, Alleria finally relaxed her brow. Chapter 55. Watching Aurelia about to leave, Roger softly reminded her, but I'm worried that Kulthalas doesn't take this matter to heart, so I hope General can pass the message back and evacuate the elves as close to Zul-Aman as possible to avoid unnecessary casualties. Aurelia nodded lightly, said thank you in a low voice, and hurried to make arrangements. Roger took advantage of this time to say to Dethrohan and Fordring, the orcs should arrive on the east coast soon, so we must be prepared to defend. The hinterlands has a long east coastline, and our defense line needs to be very long. Fortunately, the coastline of the hinterlands has a large drop, we only need to defend a few key positions, and then use the geographical advantages to prevent the orcs from landing. First of all, we need an army to block the estuary of this river in the north, and we must not let the orc fleet go up the river, otherwise all our arrangements will be in vain. So Lord Fordring, this task is up to you. Fordring nodded, waiting for Roger's arrangement. I will hand over my men to you, and they will guide you on how to block the estuary. John stepped forward, Lord Fordring, we have a lot of engineering work to do, so it's best to leave as soon as possible. No problem. Fordring followed suit and led his army to set off with B Company. What about us? Dethrohan asked. We need to take Sal Salvasa first and set it up as a camp. Then attack Jinthialor to drive the Revantisk trolls back, lest they cause trouble for us. Lord de Throhan, I think this task is very much to your liking, right? An ugly smile appeared on de Throhan's serious face, of course. I've been waiting for a long time. He suddenly turned around and raised his warhammer. Warriors of Lord Aaron, attack! Following de Throhan's shout, the warriors under his command drew their weapons and rushed out of the outpost camp, killing the trolls who were still attacking the outpost. In the hinterlands, there are two forest troll tribes, the Witherbark trolls and the Revantisk trolls. The Witherbark trolls' lair is in Shidralor, and they often attack Airy Peak. However, since the High Elves established Kuldanal Lodge in the hinterlands, the Witherbark trolls have been greatly restricted, and at most they just add a little trouble to the wild hammer dwarves and elves. The Revantisk trolls occupy Jinthialor and wreak havoc in the eastern hinterlands. They number in the tens of thousands and have several small tribes. Among these small tribes, the one with the largest population is the Vilebranch tribe, with a population of tens of thousands, almost the sum of the other small tribes. Most of the Vilebranch trolls live in the coastal Vilebranch village, living by fishing. But their range of activity is very large, and the Temple of Zul'Farrak is their former residence. Since Zul'jin allied with the Orc, the Revantisk trolls and the Witherbark trolls have received Zul'jin's order to attack Airy Peak and destroy the wild hammer dwarves' griffin nests. The Dragon Maw orcs did not obtain the dragon soul, causing the orcs to lose the red dragons that dominated the sky. If the wild hammer dwarves' griffins cannot be destroyed, then the horde will lose air supremacy. Zul'jin has fought with the High Elves for thousands of years, so he naturally knows that wars without air supremacy are difficult to fight. But it is a pity that before the Revantisk trolls and the Witherbark trolls launched an attack, Lothar sent de Throhan and Fordring over. They directly drove the Witherbark trolls back to Shidralor, and then stationed troops at Windbreak Outpost, blocking the Revantisk trolls in the Zul'Farrak area. For many days in a row, the Vilebranch trolls have been attacking Windbreak Outpost. They didn't expect to drive the Alliance army back, but instead made harassing attacks while probing the situation. Orgrim's envoy has arrived at Vilebranch village, and the Orc army will arrive tomorrow. Although the trolls look down on other races, they are qualified as allies. If they weren't too weak, they would have liked to wipe out the Alliance army in one fell swoop to clear the way for the Orc landing. As usual, the harassing attack of the Vilebranch trolls met the full-strength Lord Aaron army, and the result can be imagined. The High Crusader took the lead in the charge, waving a warhammer burning with holy fire, easily killing one troll after another. His tall body made the trolls seem weak and unable to withstand the wind, even the powerful troll warriors were not as broad as he was. The tall body possessed great power, coupled with his superb martial skills, the warhammer was like a toy in his hand, wielding it with great skill. The vast holy light in his body made him invulnerable, and he didn't need to defend at all, charging straight through the trolls. Not only that, he constantly activated the devotion aura, enhancing the defense of the soldiers near him. Under the enhancement of the devotion aura, the soldiers fought bravely, following de Throhan like a pack of tigers rushing into a flock of sheep, and quickly defeated the Vilebranch trolls. When Roger and the elves and dwarves arrived at Zul'Farrak, they only saw the logistics troops left to clean up the battlefield, and the regular army led by de Throhan had already gone to attack Jinthialor. Curdlan quickly summoned the Griffin riders. "Quick, we are already behind, we must get to the front line as soon as possible." Roger said to Curdlan, "Thank you for your trouble. This is what we should do." Curdlan laughed and took the Griffin riders into the air. Aerolia handed over the task of establishing the defense line to the adjutant, and then asked Roger, "Rogers, you seem to know the orcs very well." "Not really," Roger said, "I've just dealt with them a lot." Aerolia didn't believe his words, but she didn't ask further. Everyone has their own secrets. She looked towards Jinthialor. "When Lord Uther was forging the paladins, I was also there. I didn't expect them to have such powerful power." "I didn't expect it either," Roger said with a hint of jealousy. If he had followed Lothar back to Lord Aaron, he might have been one of the first paladins. Aerolia raised her eyebrows. She seemed to smell a sour taste. "Let's go to the front line and take a look. They seem to be encountering some difficulties," Roger said suddenly. Aerolia immediately cast eagle eye, but only saw a blurry image. She looked at Roger suspiciously, a little unsure how Roger discovered it. Did he use magic? Roger, who was running quickly, didn't notice Aerolia's expression. He saw through farsight that de Throhan was actually resisting the troll witch doctor's voodoo and launching a charge. "Drink!" De Throhan roared, venting the anger in his chest. The powerful holy light enveloped him, making him oblivious to the constantly surging voodoo around him. He only had one goal in his eyes, and that was the troll witch doctor who had knocked down a large number of his men. The troll witch doctor's eyes were flustered, the voodoo he released was completely blocked by the holy light, and he couldn't hurt Dethrohan at all. Watching Dethrohan approaching, the troll witch doctor panicked and turned to run away. "Troll, repay your sins." Dethrohan rushed behind him, and the warhammer smashed into his body, and the holy fire instantly burned the witch doctor's body to ashes. Chapter 56. At Eagle Talon Point, Orgrim was the first to disembark. He raised his head, gazing at the cliffs not far away. As long as they ascended from here, they could circle around and attack the Alliance army from behind. When that time came, he would certainly let the humans witness the might of the Orcish warriors. However, at that moment, the chieftain of the Eagle Talon trolls hurried to his side. "Warkif, the humans have established a defensive line atop the cliffs. If we want to attack, I'm afraid it will come at a great cost." Orgrim nearly spat out a mouthful of blood. He gritted his teeth and asked, "What is going on? Didn't your previous intelligence reports say there were no problems?" The Eagle Talon chieftain shrunk his neck, trying hard to explain. "The humans concealed their forces. They stationed a large number of troops in the outposts northwest of Shadowbreak Spire. No matter how our people attacked, they didn't send out too many troops. Until yesterday, they suddenly rushed out of the outposts, capturing Shadowbreak Spire in one fell swoop and blocking the gates of Jinthakalar. Damn it!" Orgrim cursed angrily, his eyes filled with rage. Ever since the defeat in the attack on Ironforge, all of his strategic intentions had been anticipated by the humans. The failed surprise attack on Thandal Span had cost the orcs a large number of elites. The Burning Blade clan was completely annihilated, the Death Knights suffered heavy losses, and the enslaved ogres also suffered heavy casualties. To cover his objective of heading north from the eastern kingdoms, he had specially spent a large sum of money to hire a large number of goblin warships, taking almost all the orcs proficient in swimming from the wetlands to launch an attack on South Shore. As a result, the goblin warships encountered the Kul Tira's navy and were beaten into a rout. If the goblins hadn't run fast enough, all the orcs proficient in swimming would have died under the Kul Tira's navy's artillery fire. To get the goblins to cooperate, he had directly sold the Fargo Deep Mine outside Stormwind City to the goblins. But after paying such a high price, what he got in return was another siege. What was he aiming for? Orgrim seemed to see an invisible hand, grasping the orcs' throat, causing them to suffocate little by little. "Warkif, what should we do?" Rhaegar Earthfury, who had followed Orgrim off the ship, asked. A fierce glint flashed in Orgrim's eyes. "Rhaegar, take your men and attack according to the original plan to tie down the humans. The other clans will continue to advance north by ship. They can defend the cliffs, but can they also defend the river? As long as we bypass the cliffs from the river, we can launch an attack from behind the humans. At that time, I will kill all the humans." Rhaegar Earthfury pounded his chest forcefully, guaranteed to complete the mission. Rhaegar Earthfury summoned his Blacktooth Grin clan. After Zul'jin's death, the surviving Dragon Maw clan members were incorporated into the Blacktooth Grin clan by Rhaegar's brother, Maim Blackheart. However, when Maim launched a surprise attack on Stromgarde, he took away most of the Blacktooth Grin clan's elites, and the Blacktooth Grin clan's strength plummeted. Despite this, the Blacktooth Grin clan still had enough strength to launch a war. After the fleet left, Rhaegar immediately launched an attack on the cliffs together with the Eagle Talon chieftain. However, the humans, standing high and blocking the only path, were completely impregnable. In a short while, hundreds of orcs and trolls fell beneath the cliffs, and Rhaegar, feeling the pain, quickly called off the attack. Rhaegar didn't want to risk his life for Orgrim. He and his brother had always wanted to regain the position of Warkif. However, the other clans supported Orgrim and did not approve of them. The brothers had also considered launching a Mak'gora against Orgrim, but they didn't have the confidence to defeat Orgrim. Orgrim was someone who could fight their father for several hours. The brothers had been waiting for an opportunity, so on the surface, they were very obedient to Orgrim. But since Maim's death, Rhaegar had begun to suspect that Orgrim didn't trust them as much as he seemed to, otherwise, why would he have sent Maim to his death? Rhaegar, who already had ulterior motives, was naturally not so resolute in carrying out Orgrim's orders. On the cliffs, Roger looked at the slowing Orcish and Troll offensive and immediately smiled. "It seems the main force of the orcs has gone north with the fleet." Alleria Windrunner nodded lightly. should we set off too? Of course. Roger and Alleria mounted their griffins and headed north. 2 hours later, they stood on a small hill, watching the fleet entering the river below. Orgrim stood on the ship, vigilantly watching the banks on both sides. According to the humans' cunning, there couldn't be no defenses on both sides. Sure enough, he saw traces of the enemy on both sides. But what surprised him was that the humans had no intention of launching an attack. Were they waiting for the horde to land? This thought had just emerged when Orgrim dismissed it. How could the cowardly humans dare to fight the Orcish warriors head-on? Then, what were the humans waiting for? Gul'dan walked over. Warkif, I sense powerful frost energy. Frost energy? Orgrim was taken aback. At that moment, the orcs on the ship in front suddenly became agitated. The river is freezing. Freezing? Orgrim suddenly lunged to the edge of the deck, seeing the surface of the river freeze into a thick layer of ice, freezing the entire fleet on the river. Damn it! Orgrim's expression changed drastically. The fleet, having lost its power, was completely a sitting duck. Boom! A huge fireball smashed into the warship in front, burning many orcs to death and igniting the warship. Quick, put out the fire! The orcs shouted, enduring the heat of the flames, trying to put out the fire. At this time, several griffin riders swooped down from the sky, throwing several oil barrels onto the fire. The flames whooshed and turned into a sea of fire, engulfing the entire warship. The orcs could only jump off the ship, scrambling to lie on the ice. Orgrim looked up, only to see countless griffin riders throwing oil barrels at the fleet. As long as these fuels were ignited, the entire fleet would be destroyed. Thinking of this, he immediately broke out in a cold sweat. Gul'dan, immediately break the ice. Gul'dan also knew that he couldn't hold back at this time. He quickly raised his staff, gathering a large amount of fell energy to strike the thick ice. Crack! In fact, even if Orgrim didn't give the order, the orcs would have retreated from the river. They didn't want to be burned to death. But it was a pity, it was already too late. Countless rockets shot out from the small hills on both sides, forming a rain of arrows, shrouding the entire fleet. The Orcish spellcasters quickly released shields, shrouding the warships. However, after all, only a few warships had spellcasters. The fuel on most of the warships was ignited, and the flames instantly engulfed the decks of the warships. Roger took out the Phoenix Bow and used arcane shot on a warlock who was maintaining a shield. The powerful penetrating power of the arcane shot pierced through the warlock's shield, interrupting the warlock's spell casting. An arrow with flames accurately shot at the fuel next to the warlock, and the raging fire engulfed the warlock. Good shot! Roger praised. Alleria's lips curled slightly. Your archery is not bad either. Chapter 57. 70% of the Horde's warships were left in the river, and a large portion of the remaining 30% were set ablaze. The orcs were no longer on the decks, they were all relying on the oars below deck to navigate the river. The river was filled with burning warships and drowning orcs. Some orcs were lucky enough to find floating ice blocks to cling to. However, deadly arrows awaited them, shot by the High Elf Rangers and B Company soldiers. Roger and Alleria also joined in the shooting game, engaging in a friendly competition, but the result was a draw. Or rather, neither of them cared about winning or losing. While shooting arrows, they exchanged archery tips. Because of his 100 steps piercing willow skill, Roger's archery was more physics-based, with heavy arrows and powerful attacks. He used a strong bow to increase range, hitting the target as his eye directed his hand. Alleria's archery was more magic-oriented. She could conjure various magical arrows at will and apply them widely, even combining them to create magical traps. At Windfeather Outpost, Roger and the others gathered again in the command hall. Kurdran's laughter never stopped. Ha ha ha, Rogers, you are a brilliant tactician. You will always be a friend of Airy Peak. Fordring also praised, I have participated in many wars, but I have never seen one as full of ingenuity as this one. No wonder Lord Lothar trusts you so much, you are worthy of trust. The dwarves and high-ranking officers of Lord Aaron also nodded in agreement. Initially, they were not very confident in Roger's abilities, but after this battle, they were in awe of him. The Alliance's biggest loss in this battle was the damage to a frost amplification staff, one of Medivae's collectibles. It wasn't even an epic-level item, its only function was to release a large amount of cold air. However, even such a fine-quality weapon, when combined with the Frost Nova spell, had the ability to freeze the river surface. Although the ice was easily broken, the Alliance army heavily damaged the Horde's fleet by exploiting the time difference created by shattering the ice. Griffin riders threw oil barrels, and mages and rangers ignited the fuel. This simple procedure resulted in heavy losses for the Horde. Alleria smiled at Roger. She had to admit that, in terms of tactics, even a ranger couldn't compare to Roger. Received recognition from high-ranking Alliance leaders such as Kurdran Wildhammer, Tyrion Fordring, and Alleria Windrunner. Gained the title Tactician and received 5 achievement points. Tactician, Hero title. Based on the battlefield intelligence gathered, formulate the most appropriate tactics. The more intelligence gathered, the faster the tactics can be formulated, and the more perfect the tactics will be. Including the 2 achievement points he had previously, Roger now had 7 achievement points. Competing in archery with Alleria had raised his hunter level to 24. He spent 2 skill points to learn Scorching Arrow and Thunderous Arrow, magical arrows infused with fire and wind elements. He immediately strengthened these 2 skills. Scorching Arrow, Beginner Splash, Burning and Burst increased by 10%. Thunderous Arrow, Beginner Splash, Paralysis and Lightning increased by 10%. Learning these 2 skills was entirely due to his exchange with Alleria. If Alleria hadn't told him the techniques, it would have been difficult for Roger to learn these 2 skills. After all, his main profession was Arcane Master. He rarely even delved into the skills of the Hero class Blade Master, let alone the ordinary class of Hunter. Thinking of this, he looked at Alleria, only to find that she was also looking at him. Roger suddenly felt a guilty conscience, and his eyes immediately turned elsewhere. His heart beat uncontrollably, and he felt a strange sense of shyness. He knew that this was the suspension bridge effect. However, he had to admit that he was quite attracted to Alleria's appearance. Alleria's lips curled up, her eyes full of teasing. She didn't expect Roger to be such a shy young man. This was completely different from the calmness and decisiveness he had maintained before, and this contrast made Alleria feel very amused. A griffin rider descended from the sky, bringing news of the Horde fleet. The Horde fleet had rested on the sea for 2 days and continued sailing north, without even taking away the orcs from Ravantisk village. Kurdran said readily, in addition to leaving griffin riders to defend Airy Peak, I will lead the remaining griffin riders to fight alongside you. Thank you, but I also need some griffins, about 100. No problem, I'll have people gather them from Airy Peak immediately. The orcs didn't control the red dragons, so the griffins of Airy Peak hadn't suffered serious losses. But even so, gathering 100 griffins was still difficult for Airy Peak. Yet, even so, Kurdran didn't decline and readily agreed. From this, it could be seen that Kurdran truly regarded Roger as a friend. Roger didn't want to make things difficult for Kurdran, but they would be heading to Stratholm next, and riding griffins was the fastest way to get there. Otherwise, it would be too late by the time Orgrim Doomhammer reached Zul-Aman and launched a large-scale attack on Kulthalas. In that war, the Windrunner family would lose 18 members, including Alleria's most beloved brother, Larath Windrunner. The entire Windrunner family would be reduced to 3 sisters, and this would be the beginning of the Windrunner family's disaster. Roger had no obligation to care about the Windrunner family's affairs, but as an ally, he couldn't stand by and watch Alleria lose her loved ones. Soon, the griffins were gathered. Roger led B Company, Alleria led the Rangers, and together with Kurdran leading the Griffin Riders, they took to the skies and headed towards Stratholm. During the flight, Kurdran flew near Roger. Rogers, it seems like he really likes you. Roger smiled and nodded. The griffins ridden by the others were restless, but the griffin he was riding was exceptionally well behaved and very obedient to him. This was the power of the will of Azeroth, any native Azerothian beast felt very close to him. Stroking the griffin's feathers, he was very satisfied with this mount. It could even withstand the aura of dragons, making it the most suitable mount for B Company. However, it would be difficult to equip all of B Company, as the number of griffins was limited, and even the wild hammer dwarves didn't have enough for themselves. Chapter 58. Stratholm was established hundreds of years ago. Besides its military function, it is also the granary of the kingdom of Lord Aaron, producing the vast majority of Lordaeron's grain. However, Stratholm is too far from Lord Aaron, so after the kingdom of Alterac betrayed the alliance, Terranaz seized Brill and the surrounding farms from the Barav family through cunning and coercion. Even so, it still didn't solve Lordaeron's grain problem, and they still needed to purchase large quantities from Stratholm. This created conditions for the cult of the Damned to unleash the Scourge Plague and became an incentive for Arthas's fall. However, the current Stratholm is still the second largest city in Lord Aeron and a bridgehead against the trolls. The Church of the Holy Light is very well developed here, with the cathedral in the city and the Chapel of the Holy Light, where priests are buried, outside the city. Thanks to Stratholm having the most priests in the human kingdom, Alensis Fail chose this place to conduct the ceremony for the first generation of paladins. Even after many days, the Holy Light still lingered in the sky above Stratholm, showing how grand the ceremony was. Hundreds of griffins landed outside Stratholm, and Baron Rivendare hurried over from the city. Rivendare is not a human surname but comes from the elves. The Rivendare family has always been the link between Lord Aeron and the High Elves, so there is a High Elf outpost near Stratholm's East Gate, and a Ranger Lord is stationed there to help Stratholm resist the trolls of Zul-Amon. Respected General Windrunner, welcome to Stratholm. Roger raised an eyebrow slightly. Baron Rivendare is a bit of a bootlicker. Aurelia seemed used to it and wasn't surprised at all. She introduced Baron Rivendare, this is Major Rogers Kysham, Sir Lothar's staff officer, and this is General Kurdran Wildhammer of Airy Peak. General Kurdran. Baron Rivendare greeted Kurdran, then looked at Roger, young man, I've heard of you. Roger said with a smile, I've long admired you as well, Baron. Is that so? Baron Rivendare maintained a dignified smile, but it was clear that he was just being polite and didn't really welcome Roger. Roger didn't mind. After all, Baron Rivendare was one of the oldest nobles in Lord Aeron, so it was expected that he would have a poor impression of him. However, this doesn't affect Roger's official business. Baron, are the troops ready? Of course. Baron Rivendare said meaningfully, I have gathered 1,000 warriors, ready to depart at any time. That's good. Aurelia saw that the two didn't hit it off, so she didn't say much. She had experienced too much intrigue among the nobles. Roger and Baron Rivendare's few words were harmless. But the next day, she witnessed Baron Rivendare's shamelessness. 1,000 recruits stood on the military training ground. These were the troops that Baron Rivendare had sent to Roger. I'm sorry, Stratholm's army was sent to Lord Aeron long ago. These soldiers are already the most elite soldiers in Stratholm. Baron Rivendare lied through his teeth, as if he couldn't see the veterans on the city walls. Aurelia looked at him coldly, it seems that the Baron doesn't care about the friendship of the elves. Baron Rivendare pleaded, General Windrunner, Stratholm really can't find any better soldiers. Forget it. Roger stopped Aurelia, who was about to lose her temper. He had already seen that Baron Rivendare had planned this. His disregard for the relationship with the elves must be based on something. Looking at the holy light surrounding Baron Rivendare's sword, Roger guessed that Baron Rivendare's reliance might be the paladins. From the map, it can be seen that if Stratholm wants to intercept the trolls of Zul-Amon, they only need to unite with the Mograine family of Tyr's Hand. Both he and Mograine are paladin lords, and Stratholm has many priests, so they can form a powerful paladin army to resist the trolls. If the number of paladins reaches a certain level, even taking Zul-Amon wouldn't be difficult. Roger let Aurelia go ahead to scout whether the orcs had reached Zul-Amon. Then he and Kurdran led the army to Kulthalas. Not far after leaving the East Wall Gate, a small team of rangers was waiting for them. This is Lord Hawksbill. Aurelia's adjutant introduced the leading ranger to Roger, who was the ranger general due to a translation error in the 60s. Major Rogers, according to the general's orders, I will follow your command. Hawksbill looked at Roger curiously. The person who could be recognized by the proud Windrunner should have some special qualities. However, apart from feeling a trace of intimacy, Roger seemed no different from other humans. These self-righteous elves, do they really think we need them? Isolated and unable to see the big picture, don't they know that humans are the masters of this world? Saying that, he picked up the invitation on the table, which was an invitation to a banquet for Stratholm noble officers, and in the host column was written, Othmar Garithas. Tell the son of Baron Garithas that I will attend the gathering. This son of a baron is an arrogant fellow who often spreads human supremacist remarks in the army. Although Baron Rivendare doesn't completely agree with his remarks, it doesn't prevent him from wooing the Garithas family. Baron Garithas is a cunning fellow with strong connections in Lord Aeron and even Dalaran. It was because of the support of the Garithas family that he dared to give Roger 1,000 recruits. Even if Lothar investigated, he wouldn't do anything to him. As for the friendship of the elves, Baron Rivendare scoffed. For so many years, it was because of this so-called friendship that the nobles of Lord Aeron despised the Rivendare family as the elves' lackeys. In the past, Stratholm's military theory was weak, and they needed the elves' assistance. Now that there are paladins, it is no problem to deal with the trolls. How could he still be the elves' lackey? Chapter 59. Zul'jin was very happy about Orgrim's arrival. However, when he saw the army that Orgrim had brought, Zul'jin felt as if he had been struck on the head. Is this all the army you have? He couldn't tell Zul'jin the truth, so he could only deceive him, saying, my friend, because the war is still ongoing, we can't spare too many troops. However, this time I've brought the most elite orc army, and I've also brought powerful warlocks. Didn't you tell me that the elves have set up many runestones on the edge of the forest? My warlocks can completely destroy them, and then with the cooperation of the Death Knights, the trolls can completely kill all the elves they see. Given the number of elves, as long as we plan properly, taking Silver Moon City is entirely possible. How could Zul'jin easily believe his words? However, Orgrim gave him a reason to be skeptical. My friend, let's go and see the Death Knights first before making a decision, it's not too late. In the square of Zul-Aman, Talon Bloodhoof stood coldly on his skeletal warhorse. After being resurrected by Gul'dan again, Talon Bloodhoof's fear was once again stripped away, turning him back into a killing machine. Moreover, Gul'dan had chosen a powerful ogre corpse for Talon Bloodhoof, and equipped him with an oversized skeletal warhorse, making him look like a small mountain. There were also many larger trolls among the trolls, with heights of over 3 meters. But even these large trolls were like children in front of Talon Bloodhoof, and coupled with the aura of death emanating from him, it made the trolls even more fearful. Zul'jin's eyes lit up when he saw Talon Bloodhoof. He could tell at a glance that Talon Bloodhoof was a powerful being. If he could have 100 knights like this, he could definitely defeat the elves. Orgrim said boastfully, my friend, my Death Knight is very powerful, right? Zul'jin nodded, indeed powerful, but unfortunately, he is just one person. Chieftain Zul'jin. Gul'dan appeared at the right time. Death Knights are created through necromancy. As long as you can provide the necessary resources, I can help you create an army of Death Knights in a short amount of time. Zul'jin's eyes lit up, and he quickly asked, what resources are needed? Gul'dan said with a smile, souls, corpses, and many magical materials. Magical materials. Zul'jin pondered for a moment, we have indeed accumulated a lot of magical items over the years, I wonder if it's enough. He didn't mention souls and corpses at all, because Zul-Aman had plenty of both. Soon, Gul'dan saw the Amani trolls' treasured collection of many years. Through years of fighting with the High Elves, the trolls had captured countless magical equipment. Although thousands of years of storage had caused many pieces of equipment to lose their enchantments, they could still be used as long as they were re-enchanted or reforged. Chieftain Zul'jin, these magical materials are enough to create an army of 1,000 Death Knights. 1,000 people. Zul'jin was overjoyed. 1,000 powerful Death Knights should be able to kill all the elves, right? Very good, you will now help me create Death Knights. After we occupy Silver Moon City, I will help you attack the humans as promised. The smile on Gul'dan's face grew stronger. Then, Chieftain, the corpses and souls. Malakras, kill 1,000 trolls and give them to Gul'dan for use. Zul'jin's words made Gul'dan's expression change slightly. He didn't expect this troll chieftain to be so ruthless. In order to create Death Knights, he would actually choose to slaughter his own people. Orgrim's expression also changed. Although the orcs were barbaric, they would never desecrate the corpses of their own kind. In order to achieve their goals, the trolls actually slaughtered their own compatriots, which was simply unbelievable. After thinking about it, he still didn't choose to dissuade him. After all, it was better for trolls to die than orcs. However, he also kept a close watch in his heart. He had to be wary of Zul'jin. This guy, who could even harm his own people, would be a disaster for the orcs if he betrayed the alliance. Creating Death Knights was not something that could be done overnight. The troll's body structure was different from that of orcs, humans, and ogres. However, this didn't stump the wise warlocks, they quickly found a solution. It was just that because of the lack of high-quality magical items, the strength of these Death Knights was far inferior to that of Talon Bloodhoof. Zul'jin was a little disappointed, but he also knew that it was impossible for every Death Knight to be as strong as Talon Bloodhoof. While creating Death Knights, Gul'dan also cracked the rune stones. The powerful corrosiveness of the fell energy quickly rendered the rune stones useless, and then he sent people to dig them out. After studying them, he quickly understood the working principle of the rune stones and then made them into magical items for the Death Knights to use. With the replenishment of the elven rune stones, the number of Death Knights in Zul-Aman was able to increase. This made Zul'jin very satisfied. If the quality couldn't be improved, increasing the quantity was also acceptable. As a result, Zul'jin was even more confident in taking Silver Moon City. Unfortunately, he overlooked one point: he was not the only one increasing his strength. As time went on, the Amini Troll's strength was increasing, and the High Elves' preparations would also become more complete. Because of Roger's reminder, the Rangers had already discovered that the rune stones had been stolen. However, the Rangers did not publicize it, but quietly moved the elven residents in the Eversong Woods. Then, the Alliance army set up a defense line in Tranquil Lane, waiting for the Horde's attack. All of the high elven merchant ships in Sunsail anchorage were converted into warships, each with a mage tower on it, with 3-5 mages permanently stationed in the mage tower. These warships began to cruise in the waterways of the Eversong Woods, dividing the Eversong Woods into north and south. South of the waterways, apart from Tranquil Lane, only the Dawnstar Spire, Windrunner Spire, and Deathalm could be attacked. And these places were all guarded by powerful mages. If the trolls attacked, they would be met with a nightmare of fire rain. So, when Zul'jin felt that there were enough Death Knights, the Horde launched an attack. But what awaited them was an empty Eversong Woods. Chapter 60. Outside Kulthalas, the troll army stood in neat formation. At the very center of the troll ranks was a phalanx of Death Knights. The death energy of nearly 2,000 Death Knights coalesced, gathering into a cloud of death that loomed over the forest. Beneath this cloud, trees withered, flowers and plants rapidly decayed, and small animals unable to escape were transformed into undead by inhaling the death energy. Wherever the Death Knights passed, everything withered. The path of their advance formed a veritable road of death. The Amini trolls kept their distance, for they, who loved living in the forest, greatly detested the aura of death. However, their great chieftain Zul'jin was overjoyed. This was the army he desired. As long as they could slaughter the High Elves and reclaim Silver Moon City, the death of a few trees, or even the sacrifice of most of the trolls, was an acceptable price to pay. Orgrim, my friend, these elves actually dare to use their mortal bodies to resist the advance of death. They truly overestimate themselves. Orgrim twitched the corner of his mouth, displeased with Zul'jin's presumption. However, with the Orcish strength diminished, he needed the troll's power. Thus, he could only flatteringly reply, indeed, these long ears have no idea that disaster has befallen them. Zul'jin nodded in satisfaction, turning his gaze towards Tharon, who commanded the Death Knights. Big man, begin the attack. I can hardly wait to see the corpses of the elves. As you wish, chieftain. Tharon responded with equal respect, raising his staff to command the Death Knights to advance. On the city wall, Alleria Windrunner frowned. Death Knights. The elves knew little about Death Knights, their limited knowledge gleaned from human intelligence. Witnessing firsthand the road of death created by the Death Knights, the elves felt both fear and intense anger. These desecrators of the dead dared to pollute their beloved forest, such an act was unforgivable. However, Ranger General Roger seemed to ignore the Death Knights. Aside from the Ogre Death Knight, the other Troll Death Knights were not particularly strong. He was more concerned about the whereabouts of Gul'dan, whose cunning and warlock abilities possessed immeasurable destructive power. If he were to hide and cause trouble, the situation would become dire. Send out scouts to see if the enemy has attempted to attack elsewhere. Alleria nodded, and soon, squads of Dragonhawk riders took to the sky, scouting the surrounding area. Despite sending out troops, Alleria remained doubtful. The troll army is all here. What are you worried about? It's precisely because the trolls are so stupid that I'm worried, Roger said. Remember the orc who shattered the ice in the hinterlands? His name is Gul'dan, a very powerful warlock. I've had contact with some orcs and learned from them that Gul'dan is exceptionally powerful. In the Orcish world, Gul'dan single-handedly used fell energy to corrupt a mountain. To this day, that mountain continues to emit fell energy. Alleria stared at Roger in astonishment, almost unable to believe his words. Roger said in a deep voice, I didn't see Gul'dan among the troll forces just now. If he's hiding and plotting destruction, Eversong Woods may cease to exist. Alleria shuddered involuntarily. If what Roger said was true, they absolutely could not let Gul'dan succeed. We must find him. Balliste, prepare. Below the city walls, a tall, slender female elf was issuing commands. At her direction, countless large bolts were fired towards the Death Knights. Defense. Tharon commanded, and all the Death Knights immediately raised shadow shields to protect themselves. However, the Troll Death Knights were much weaker. The enchanted large bolts easily tore through the shadow shields and pierced the Death Knights' bodies. A few unlucky Death Knights were struck in vital spots and killed outright. But most of the Death Knights paid no attention to the large bolts' attacks, not even bothering to glance at their wounds, continuing to advance towards Kulthala's defences under Theron Ja's command. The female elf frowned, seemingly not expecting these Death Knights to be so difficult to deal with. The ballista continued to fire, but with little success. Soon, the Death Knights approached Kulthala's first line of defense. Behind the line, human recruits nervously crouched behind cover, awaiting orders. "Don't be nervous, follow orders." The B Company soldiers, mixed among the recruits, constantly reassured them. "Remember the training." Alleria sighed helplessly. "She's just too wary." "That's a good thing," Roger joked. "I wonder what she'll think when she realizes her preparations were completely unnecessary." Alleria glared at him, thinking, "You're childish enough yourself." Amidst the elven arrow rain, the Death Knights continued to approach Kulthala's. Magic arrows landed on the shadow shields, only stirring up ripples, unable to harm the Death Knights. Ha ha ha! Zul'jin, watching the Death Knights disregard the elves' attacks, couldn't help but burst into laughter. "Orgrim, my friend, do you see how powerful my Death Knights are? Those damned elves are about to meet their doom." He had never seen such a powerful army, practically clad in steel armor. No, wait, the Death Knights' performance seemed comparable to dwarven tanks. They were like an iron torrent, unafraid of the enemy's attacks. Zul'jin believed this iron torrent could easily crush the elven defences, breach Kulthala's, and storm into Silver Moon City. "Attack! Attack! Attack!" Zul'jin shouted, "Amini trolls, the time for revenge has come. Slaughter all the elves and reclaim our sacred land. Reclaim our sacred land." The trolls shouted in response. For thousands of years, they finally had the opportunity to fulfill their long-cherished desire. So, despite their dislike for the Death Knights, they still followed them into the charge. Sylvanas Windrunner's expression changed drastically. "Lor'themar, prepare to retreat." "Yes." Lor'themar Theron immediately ran to Kulthala's city gate, instructing the soldiers inside to open it. "Retreat! Retreat into the city quickly." The elves could not contend with thousands of Death Knights and tens of thousands of trolls on the meager defensive line. Just as the elves were about to retreat, a figure leaped from the city wall, disappearing into the air. When he reappeared, he was already on the Death Knight's path, raising his hand to unleash a barrage of arcane missiles. "What?" Sylvanas turned back in astonishment.